Hej og velkommen til tredje dag her i sagen mod Adam Montgomery, manden som er tiltalt for at have dræbt sin datter. Denne del af sagen her handler dog om noget ulovlig våbenbesiddelse. Han har angiveligt stjålet en AR-15 og en Mossberg shotgun fra en af hans kammerater, han tog stoffer med, mand. Og i og med, at manden i forvejen er det, der hedder en felon over i USA, han er dømt for en slem forbrydelse, derfor så måtte han ikke eje våben. Så nu har staten så lagt sag an imod ham i de her tiltaler om at have stjålet, opbevaret og videregivet våbnene, og alle tre ting kan give ham en pæn lang tur i fængslet. Det er måske ikke det mest relevante i forhold til Adam Montgomery. Det er mere det, at han i august måned skal i retten igen i sagen, hvor han er anklaget for at have banket sin datter, 5-årige datter, ihjel kort tid efter, at han fik samkvem med datteren, at hun boede ved ham. Han fik bopælspligten for datteren, og det er ligesom derfor, jeg hoppede på den her sag, hvor jeg tænkte, vi skal se, hvordan vil de prøve at sørge for, at alle dem, der bliver brugt som vidner i den her sag, de kommer nok igen til sagen med datteren, og derfor så vil forsvaret gøre alt, hvad de kan for at prøve at få ham til at fremstå, eller få dem til at fremstå så utroværdigt som muligt. Og de første 2 dage, lad os bare sige, det har været præget af, det er folk fra stofmiljøet, det er folk, som ikke husker ret meget. Man kan godt mærke, at de husker rigtig godt de historier, at de sådan ligesom har ikke aftalt med politiet, man har snakket om med politiet sådan i optakten til det her. Og udover det, så bliver det sådan noget svævende, hvad tid det er sket, hvornår det er sket, hvem har vidst noget, hvem har noget med noget at gøre. Men altså, vi må se, om vi bliver klogere i dag. Og til jer alle sammen, så glædelig farsdag og god grundlovsdag. Det er jo en fridag for de fleste af jer, så nu må vi se, om der er nogle danskere med på linjen. Ellers, jeg kan se, der er et par af mine amerikanske venner på i hvert fald. Men er der nogle danskere, så giv endelig lyd. Jeg kører det meste af det på engelsk, men hvis jeg kan se, der er nogle danskere, så sig endelig til, så skal jeg nok prøve at gøre det på 2 sprog. Hello and welcome everybody. Welcome to day 3 in the Adam Montgomery case. This is the case about this man, Adam Montgomery, who's charged with 2 counts of stealing guns, having guns, and disposing of guns as a felon, which he's not allowed to as a felon. This case could bring him in some trouble, but the more important part of this trial is that in August he will be back in court, charged with the murder of his 5-year-old young daughter Harmony, which he allegedly beat to death, according to what I can find online. But this case is important in that aspect that the defense has tried very hard to discredit all the witnesses in this case. This case is filled with drug addicts and former drug addicts. It's very clear when they take the stand that their memories are not the best, and the defense keeps hammering their memories, saying, do you know when, do you know where, do you know what? And sadly, most of it has
we're ready to begin.
Has been
Attorney
a
Gotti,
very,
whenever you're ready,
very
you may call your next
long
witness.
time for the defense to attack witnesses, more than it has been about trying to tell a story, in my opinion. Especially one of the defense lawyers uses way too much time to try to discredit the witnesses. But we'll have to pick it up and see where it goes today. And
Your Honor, would you prefer a reminder? Would you prefer me to re-swear in, Mr.
and
I'll just remind you, Mr. Doe,
happy
you
Grundlovsdag.
remain under
Today is
oath.
the day we celebrate.
Good morning, Mr. Doe.
our
Good morning.
Constitution.
Thank you for
So,
coming in again
day
today.
off normally, but
We didn't have a chance to finish talking
I'll,
about some of the rest of the video that you had
let's
obtained
jump
last
right
Friday.
into
So my hope today is to just very briefly go over one last thing where we ended on Friday, and then go through a few more of those materials that we looked at on the CDO identified States Exhibit 1. Okay?
Absolutely.
All right. And what I'd like to start with is, I believe the last thing that we had done is we were just looking at some video footage that was on one of the tracks of this CD, specifically the service desk overview monitor track.
You can
which
watch
runs
the
from
LMC.
13:55:50 all the way through to
usually
14:29:42. Do you recognize that on the screen, that same video that we watched
very
before?
loud from the board?
Okay. I'd like to play the very beginning of this video again, just for a couple of seconds to reorient us to where we are. And I'll start that from the beginning. So again, what area of the store is this?
This is the service desk.
It's probably that audio booster that messing up my sound, but I will try to not talk as much when the cord is on. And remember, this is the very, very interesting part about the ATM at the Walmart store. I'm sure it's going to be the smoking gun in this case. Go.
Okay. And that green item over on the left-hand side.
That is the Eco ATM machine.
Okay. Hold on a second. We seem to be getting a little glitchy here. Just a moment. Start that again. All right. Is that better? Easier to see without the pixelation? And I believe you had described for us on Friday that Eco ATM, that was for recycling of electronics. People could get money for them.
Correct.
Right. And from this particular video, we had watched this several different minutes, up, I believe, until almost 29 minutes into the videos. And how long, again, did you say was a typical length of time for somebody to be standing at this machine to do a transaction?
From my understanding, 5 to 10 minutes.
5 to 10?
Objection, then, foundation.
I believe we established that on Friday, but I will reestablish foundation. Mr. Dope, how long did you work at Walmart again?
About 2 years.
2 years. And during that time period, could you estimate how many people you have seen use that machine?
Maybe 50. And I have also personally used it myself.
How long did it take it when you used it to recycle some of your electronics?
I didn't use it to the fullest extent. I just used it to get an estimate of what it would give me. And it was about 5 minutes to just get the estimate of how much the item was worth.
Oh, so I totally missed that. We don't have those in Denmark where you can put in some electronics and get money back. So it's probably important. We're learning something new every day when you're not from the US.
Okay. And for the 50 or so times you've seen other people make those transactions, how long did it take them on average?
Like I said, about 5 to 10 minutes, depending on what they were doing.
So what I'd like to do, rather than rewatching all of this video, the same sections that we saw before, I'm going to fast forward up to 29 minutes and 30 seconds into the video. We'll go to 29 minutes here. Do we still see the same two young women at the Eco ATM that we talked about on Friday?
We do.
On Friday, you also identified a gentleman in a tan hat who you saw come in with them.
Correct.
Can you please let me know if you see that gentleman again on this section of the video? We are now at 29:30 into the video.
I don't see him currently.
To you Americans, can you just deposit any electronic? If you find a phone on the street, can you just put it in and get money out? Or how do they check it's your phone? It's like going to the pawn shop, but at that shop you have to prove that it's your $1,000 wedding band that you sell for $50 or pawn or whatever it's called. And I'm probably pronouncing pawn the wrong way.
I do now.
We're at 29:57 into the video. Is he still wearing the tan hat?
He is.
I'd like to have you review this for approximately 1 more minute, and then I'm going to pause it and ask you a few questions, okay?
Yep.
It's riveting entertainment to watch people putting something in an ATM on a bad surveillance camera.
And the gentleman with the tan hat, which way did you see he went?
We
Right.
went towards the general merchandise entrance.
We're going to pause it here, 31 minutes and 9 seconds into this particular track. You went towards the general merchandise entrance?
Correct.
Okay. And the other young lady that had been there at the kiosk that time before, which direction did she go?
Also in that same direction.
Were you able to, using the recorded footage, see where they went in the store after they disappear off the screen of this camera?
I was.
And
This is not a pawn shop. This is a eco ATM. I think it's somewhere you can deposit electronic and get some kind of money for it, like recycling or something like that. I never heard about it before. I know in some of the Asian countries you can put your phone in and get some money back. But the witness told us that he had never used it for anything else than had an estimate of what he could get for it. So it's not a pawn shop. I'm sure I'm pronouncing it like something men watch on television, but this is it just looks like an ATM. That's why I thought this is very, very boring to watch people try to get money out of an ATM. But if they're putting money into it, electronics into it to get money, I'm just wondering how they would get past the problem that people can steal things and put into it. But it's probably not that wide known if you don't know it, David. And good day, Tweety. Let's get back to it.
was that part of the footage that you provided here on this packet of videos that you gave to the Manchester Police Department?
It was.
Could you describe for me this camera footage? I believe you sent on Friday, but I apologize, I forget the answer. About how high off the ground is this one?
I'd say about 10 feet.
10 feet?
About, yeah.
Are there any videos, are there any cameras within Walmart when you were working there at this time period that cover people's facial features better, so we might be able to help identify these folks a little better?
Yes, they're called the public view monitors.
Where are those located?
They're scattered throughout the store, but the ones that I provided were in the health and beauty department.
And health and beauty department, on the labels on the videos, do they say health and beauty, or do they say another name for the ones that came from that section?
I don't remember, but it would either be health and beauty or cosmetics.
Cosmetics.
Yeah.
Okay. With regards to cosmetics then, what I'd like to do is on that exhibit that we talked through on State's Exhibit 1, I'd like to ask, did you review those cameras as well to see where those two other people went, the gentleman in the tan hat and the other young lady?
Yes, any video that I provided, I would have had to personally watch in order to burn it.
And when you burn these onto the CD, if we were looking at the CD here, is there time signatures on each one of those tracks so we know what time period is captured?
Yes.
All right. I'd like to start then with the track that you listed at the earliest time period, Cosmetics EVPM 6, 12/30/2021, from 14/28/33 through the same date of 14/28/51. The cosmetic section.
Yes,
You see that same gentleman in the tan hat.
we do.
Is that the same young lady with him?
Correct.
How high are these cameras off the ground?
Morning, Jackie.
I'd say they're about face level. So it comes down from the ceiling, and it's probably, I would say, maybe a foot above me.
Okay. And how tall are you?
I'm about 5'9".
Okay. So about 5'10" or so?
Yeah.
play that track one more time. This area of the store, where is it in relationship to that service desk?
It's still in the front end of the store, but it's probably from the general merchant. It's closer to the general merchandise entrance.
General merchandise?
Yeah.
Okay.
So when you walk in through that entrance, you take a right, and it's right there.
And at that point, I'd like to go to the next track that you provided to the police department. Cosmetics EPVM 4, 12/30/2021, from 14/28/47 through the same date of 14/29/13. And show you that track. And tell us if you can see those same two individuals.
I do.
And what is the relationship of this aisle compared to the last aisle that we just saw?
They're right next to each other.
At this point, I'd like to ask you now about the next track that you provided to the Manchester Police Department, track entitled Cosmetics EVPM 6, 12/30/2021, from 14/29/10 through the same date of 14/29/21. Is this the first aisle that we saw from that first cosmetics track?
Yes,
And do you see the same two individuals here?
I do.
And I believe you said that that aisle that we just saw is directly next to the one that we saw previously.
I believe so, yes.
I'd like to go to the next track that you provided, Cosmetics EVPM 5, 12/30/2021, from 14/29/18 through the same date of 14/32/16. And please let us know if you see those same two individuals. And which aisle does this cover?
This is also cosmetics.
Okay. Is it the same aisle that we just saw a moment ago, but from a different angle, or?
No, this is a different aisle, I believe.
Okay.
They're pretty low on stock
And
over
do you
here.
see the same individual in the tan hat and
I-
the young lady with him?
I do.
At least the cameras are better than the Anderson trial, where you couldn't see anything on them. Normally, surveillance cameras are very grainy. Here we can see all his nice neck tattoos, so you can
Would you
identify him.
agree with me? It's fair to say that these cameras are much closer to individuals than those earlier shots over at the service desk.
They are, yes.
Going up and down the same aisle, that's why you never go shopping with a woman.
The item that the gentleman in the tan hat seems to have in his hand, were you able to identify what that is?
If I remember correctly from one of the frames in the video, it was a prepaid phone, it looked like.
Thank you.
Couldn't you just make sure you knew what you were getting before you went into the store? It makes it so much easier. That's why men, we have one type of t-shirt, one pair of pants, and one pair of boxers we like. In, out, and get it over with.
And how long does Walmart hold on to these videos? What's the time period of retention on them typically?
It just depends, but it's typically anywhere between a month to 3 months.
Thank you.
Yeah, I bet. And the stuff is so small you can easily conceal it. So that's probably why they have it. with the good camera angles and the great camera. Baby, please don't wear pink the next time.
Now I'd like to show you and ask you questions about the last of the cosmetic tracks that you provided to Manchester Police Department. Cosmetics EVPM 6, 12/30/2021 from 14/32/22 through the same date of 14/33/1. If I could direct your attention to the screen and let us know if you see those same two individuals, okay?
Yep.
Thank you.
I do.
And let us know if they reappear on the screen.
They do.
Was that a friendly face pull, or is he getting mad?
And they appeared again.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Doe.
Yep.
Are there any cameras that were closer than that, that were even closer to an individual's face that you routinely used while you were working at Walmart?
The only ones that I could think that would be closer would be the entrance and the exit cameras.
Okay. And were there any that were kind of in between that close level of view here and the farther away view? Is there kind of like a middle range?
I believe so, yes.
Is there one that was located in an area near razor blades?
Yes.
I'd like to show you one of the other tracks on here that you gave to the Manchester Police Department. The razor blade camera from 14/32/50 all the way through 14/34/31. Is this that middle view that we're talking about?
Yes.
And can you see the individual in the tan hat here?
I can, yes.
Where are they?
They're in the far left aisle.
Far left on the screen here?
Yep.
And if you would, please let us know if you see them reappear.
And I have two daughters, so
And where are they located now?
I'm not exactly sure what that aisle is, but the one to the right of it is the razor blade aisle. So it'd be the aisle after the razor blades.
Okay.
I have two daughters, and the worst thing in my life was going shoe shopping with them. Even when they were small, it's impossible to pick the right shoe. So God punished me with giving me daughters. Oh, he
And
did.
eventually,
I
were
love
you
it.
able to record those individuals leaving the store?
I was, yes.
I believe you said just a moment ago, and correct me if I'm wrong, you said there was near the exit, there are cameras that are even closer to an individual to capture their face?
Correct.
I'd like to show you the track that you provided the Manchester Police Department entitled Exit Grocery from the same date with the timestamp of 14/36/25 to 14/36/34, and ask you whether or not you see those two individuals in this video.
Okay. I do.
And these are the same two individuals that you followed through the store from the Eco ATM machine all the way through those other areas of the cosmetics section near the razor blade aisle and then to exiting the store.
Correct.
Finish playing it. Now from that, I'd like to finally go back to that last, the first video that we looked at, the service desk video. The individual you saw in kind of that light blue or seafoam colored top there.
Yep.
did you see her exit with these two individuals, or did she exit separately?
I believe she exits separately. She did not leave with them.
And going back to the service desk interview, I know a moment ago we left off at approximately 31 seconds. I'm going to try with my eyesight to get her up to around 32:55.
I'll be interested to see where this leads, because what does this show? It shows people shopping
Is
and,
that the same individual still, the Ego ATM?
It is.
and using an ATM machine. It's
When
gonna-
you use an Eco ATM, how do you get the money when you get paid for these devices?
I'm not sure how that part works with the ATM.
Okay. What about for yourself in the experience of having your items assessed for what their value was?
I don't really remember the exact process to the T, but I believe they provide you with a sticker. You put a sticker on it, you put it on the machine, and then it does whatever it does, and then it gives you a value.
Do you recall whether it gave you any paperwork or anything else?
For just the value, it did not.
Okay. And which way is that young woman heading now?
Towards the general merchandise.
Excuse me just for a moment, Your Honor. Mr. Dobe, I appreciate your time. I don't have any further questions for you. I believe defense counsel may have a few.
Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Caroline Smith, and I only have a few questions. And I know that you said it several times, but what is the date of that video?
I believe it was 12:30,
What year?
2021.
Okay. So it was at the end of 2021.
Correct.
Okay. And a guy that you were tracking through the store with Attorney Agati,
Mm-hmm.
he walked in with two females
Correct.
and went back and forth, was walking around with one female. Sometimes the two females were together at the Echo, and sometimes one was.
Mhm.
Okay. And the Echo ATM is essentially a machine that puts a value on the components of the electronics that you're.
Please walk away from the microphone.
I believe so. I don't know what the machine exactly does. I don't work for them, so.
Less than half an hour, and
You
Elaine
see
has
people put
already
various,
made me
like,
angry.
Smartphones in,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe flip phones.
Yep.
And small electronics like iPads.
I believe I've seen that. Yeah.
Okay. And your whatever reason that they put that in the machine is something that you don't know, right?
Correct.
Why they would do it. Whether it's broken or old or somebody just needs money.
Correct.
Okay. And were you working at that store in October 22nd, 2019?
I was not working there.
Okay. Thank you.
No questions, Your Honor. We'd ask that this witness be excused, please.
You may step down. Any objection to his being excused? All right, so you
Did
are
we get
Thank you.
anything from this? And I'm not sure, was it in 2021 he was at the store? The guns should be in the beginning of 2019 or the end of 2019. I'm not sure you could put a gun into an ATM. But perhaps the prosecutor will bring something in that maybe one of the witnesses can tell us that it was something they stole or something. Because I don't know what we just watched for 20 minutes. That's yeah. Sometimes I'm too blunt to understand why they show something, but if they have somewhere they're going with this, it could be important. But we haven't heard anything about missing electronics equipment. And the only electronics that is in this case is the scopes on the guns, but I'm not sure you could put your scope into a machine like that and get a appraisal of it. Boom, 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 boom. What are we waiting for? There was supposed to be a witness today that maybe is going to plead the fifth. I believe it's after the lunch break. They will have a hearing to see if he can assert his rights to plead the fifth. Somebody who he may or may not have done some shady business with, but he pled the fifth when they asked him Friday, and they said that at around noon today he should come back with his lawyer, and then they are going to find out if he has to testify or not. So that'll be interesting. But as I understood it, it was just somebody that he told about guns and who knew about some gun sales. I really didn't get anything like he was connected to it in some way. Bum, 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 bum. Oh, maybe it's someone who's in prison since they're going out the back door. Yeah, I love the fifth. There are many, many amendments to the Constitution. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5. I plead the fifth. Back when the American television had some funny sketch shows, but that's gone downhill since then. And another Chris Tucker had some good ones too. How not to get arrested while driving as black, I believe it's called. Oh. She got the New Hampshire state to pay for her clothes.
And Caleb, if you remain standing, do you swear that the testimony that you're about to provide will be the truth and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalty of perjury?
Yes.
You can have a seat and make yourself comfortable.
I do. Back when TV was funny. And when we started getting those things on Danish television, back when we started having satellite TV. Is this his ex-wife?
Okay, Kayla, can you please state and spell your first and last name for the jury?
My name's Kayla Montgomery.
Yep, ex-wife.
KaylaMontgomery.
Okay, and how old are you, Kayla?
32.
Where do you currently reside?
She's his ex-wife, and she has 2 charges of perjury for a grand jury. And today they're probably going to go down the route that she didn't tell anything because he was beating her, and that's why she didn't talk. But the defense will say, well, when you went before the grand jury, you wasn't in a relationship with him. You have left him long before, so why were you still afraid of him? So this could be fireworks. So no, not a jailhouse snitch, but a scorned ex-wife can be just as dangerous as a guy who can get out of prison for singing in court. So this, I'm not sure. There was some talk about they could show pictures of her with 2 black eyes, allegedly courtesy of our friend Adam Montgomery. But we'll see where this goes, because this could be the big thing in the case, because no, Josie, she was the stepmom. It was his biological daughter, but she was with him at the time, and she will be the crown witness, I believe, in the murder trial. So watch out for the defense doing everything they can to say this woman cannot be trusted in any way. So I hope she's not as meth heady as all the other witnesses, and that we finally can get, let's get some spies, because it's not been the most fun trial to follow. We haven't got any sudden outburst or detectives who can't remember how to do their job and maybe went to the Hoover School of Policing. So hopefully this goes the right way.
The state prison for women
Morning.
And how long have you lived there?
since November 2022.
Why do you live in the women's prison?
Perjury charges.
Were you convicted of those charges
Yes,
and sentenced for those charges?
yes,
Were you also charged with receiving stolen property?
yes,
And those charges were dismissed as part of a were those
yes,
charges dismissed as part of a plea agreement?
yes,
And you admitted to lying to the grand jury?
yes,
Did you admit to, apologies. Did you admit to lying to the grand jury?
yes,
Do you understand the consequences of providing false testimony here today?
yes.
How are you doing today, Kayla?
I'm okay.
Is it difficult for you to be here?
Yes.
Why is that?
It's a lot.
And so, Kayla, there's a microphone right in front of you. It looks like a stick coming out from beside the computer screen there. If you can just sit a little bit closer to that, it's a little difficult for me to hear you. And I want to make sure that all of these jurors hear what you're saying. So you said it's a lot?
Yeah.
Okay.
Better quiet than Amber Heard.
Do you know someone named Adam Montgomery?
Yeah.
And how do you know him?
He is my husband.
You said he's your husband?
Yeah.
How long have you two been married?
6. It'll be 6 years.
Do you remember the date you got married?
Yeah, it was June 7th, 2017.
How long have you known Adam Montgomery?
Since we were in high school.
Are you currently in legal proceedings related to your marriage?
Yes.
Did you file for divorce?
Yes, I did.
Did you leave the defendant at some point in time?
Yes.
Do you know if after you left him, he started a relationship with another individual?
Yes, he did.
Do you know that person's name?
Kelsey Small.
Did you ever meet Kelsey Small?
Yes.
Do you have any children with the defendant?
Yes, I do. I have 3.
3 children. What are their names?
Seamus, Declan, and Kira.
So you talked about where you're currently living at the women's prison.
Yeah.
Where did you live back in October of 2019?
I was living at 77 Guilford Street in Manchester, New Hampshire,
How long did you live there?
for about a year and a half.
For a year and a half. Why did you stop living there?
Because we got kicked out of the house.
Was that an eviction?
Yes.
Do you remember what month and what year that was?
November 2019.
Probably a meth name. They spelled it wrong.
When you lived at the 77 Guilford Street address, who did you live with there?
It was myself, Adam, Seamus, Declan, and Harmony.
Do you think you'd recognize that address if you saw it today?
Yes.
Judge, may I approach the witness?
Yes, you may.
This is the ex-wife who has 3 kids with Adam. She is doing time for 2 charges of perjury. So the defense are going to be hammering
marked for identification as states exhibit 42A through J. And I'm just going to ask you to look at each of those.
So she's a resident of on the state's bill in New Hampshire,
Council, can you approach just a minute?
and that's why she's dressed in that nice. What's that color? Orange, tomato, red. Ladies, help me out. But she is the one who can bring the spice to this trial, because I think she's the crown witness for the murder too. So they're probably gonna hit her very, very hard, and she already seemed emotionally distressed. So
Okay.
either good or really bad.
Starting with 42A, and it looks like they're, let me get them back in order really quick.
That's G.
Please remove.
Teresa.
Oh, her hands are cuffed. Oh, why was he doing that motion? To get the handcuffs off her, or? That's some weak ketchup if that's that bright color. Yeah, I don't know. I thought prison clothes were orange, but I'm just seeing the show on Netflix. All the striped ones from the cartoons. Yeah, well, she knows that you can't lie, because she's the first person I ever heard about convicted of perjury. So at least she knows she can't lie, because she's doing time for lying to a grand jury. So and she had some disposing of or handling of stolen property as well, but that was dismissed. But if she's the person who's gonna get him in trouble with the murder case, that's it's an important witness. Oh yes, and if you like the Travis Rudolph, or
So starting with A and going to J, if you could just look at each of
follow
those images and
David's
identify them in turn.
much better court trial, court coverage.
The first, A is the driveway and the mailbox. And
Are you going to
B
follow
is
it
the
live today, or
outside
doing
of the house of the
recap?
front yard. And this is in the basement ceiling.
I'm just going to ask you to please keep your voice up, because all the
Yeah.
jurors need to be able to hear you. Thank you.
And if you could just note which letter you're on.
42C.
Okay, and what did you say 42C is?
That's the ceiling in the basement.
Some
And
people can have 3 holes at the same time.
42D is
Hashtag 3-hole wonder.
the ceiling in the attic, I believe. Yeah. And 42E is the attic, the storage room in the attic. And 42F is
Oh, so
room.
definitely, if you have been following along
and
on
whose
the
room
original
is-
trial, give David a look.
it was mine and Adam's and the 2 boys.
Okay, and G?
That's Harmony's room.
H?
Harmony's room
Harmony is the daughter that he
The
allegedly
kitchen.
claimed.
is I, and the back porch is J, or the
I
front.
heard that as well. So
I don't know which
it's
one
going to
that
be
is.
interesting.
And
Oh, that's the front.
there, it's the front.
Yeah.
So it's the front room.
Yeah, the living room.
And are those fair and accurate representations of the 77 Guilford Street address, as you remember it.
Yes.
And judge, at this point, I need to strike the ID and markers.
And while I remember it, David is having a Q&A stream tonight, and it's a grift stream. He needs some cameras so he can cover his own court cases. So if you like David, or you like and what's not to like, and you're living in the US, because as I remember it, it's very late Danish time. But if you like David and you like to grift a good grift stream, then please follow his Q&A tonight. And if you have the opportunity, maybe drop a buck or two, or else I think he'll just appreciate a view and a thumbs up in every stream he makes.
Any objection?
I think she may have fixed it, or the question may have, as you remember it, but I think I'd like further foundation of.
Yes.
Oh, Elaine. What do you think, Chad? Is she gonna be attacking her way, way, way too hard to make her seem very sympathetic to the jury, or will she get her clear and concisely to say something that makes her seem untrustworthy, and then stop it while she's ahead in the game? I'm leaning towards that she's gonna be yammering on and making this witness seem
So,
very sympathetic.
Kayla, you said that those are fair and accurate representations of the Guilford Street address as you remember it.
Yes.
And so I was referring specifically to October 2019. Is that an accurate representation of the house back then
Yes, without the furniture.
and without your things?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Judge, at this point, I'm going to strike the ID.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
The ID is stricken. Each of those are entered as full exhibits.
And so, Kayla, you're telling us about the front room, and I think you also mentioned the kitchen.
Yes.
Where are those in relation to each other?
They are, when you walk into the house, the living room is right in the front, and then you walk through and there's the kitchen, but there's a wall that separates the kitchen and the living room. But there's still the walkway to walk through.
So you can walk through from one to another. I'm going to take those back from you. If you need more water, just let me know. So focusing back on that time period, September, October 2019, what was your life like back then?
I was working up until November 2019 at Dunkin' Donuts. I would work 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. And Adam would be home with the kids while I'm at work. And he would drop me off and pick me up from work because I didn't have a license. And then after he would pick me up, I would be at the house with the kids, and he would leave some nights because we were using drugs.
When you say we were using drugs, what do you mean?
Like getting high, using heroin and crack and weed.
And when you say we were getting high and using heroin and crack and weed, who's we?
Adam and I.
And what was your drug of choice?
It was both heroin and crack.
Are you sober now?
Yes.
What did it take for you to become sober?
Going to jail.
She doesn't look as
I asked you about your drug of choice back then. What was the defendant's?
the other meth witness.
Heroin.
And you mentioned working at Dunkin' Donuts up
Yes.
until November of 2019.
Yes.
What did the defendant do for work back then?
He was home with the kids.
And he'd leave at night, you said?
Yeah, he would leave after I'd be home for a couple hours, and go for rides.
Okay. Do you know, back then, how did you get your drugs?
I had money from my job, and that's what I remember up until we got kicked out, evicted from the house.
And you mentioned Harmony, Declan, and Seamus. How did you support them?
We had food stamps, and my income, which was barely anything at the time.
Was there anyone that you were close to back then in September, October 2019?
There was a few people that were.
I'm sorry, but it's stories like this that just make it hard to watch some trials. We can always laugh and joke about some things, but just listening to, I'm just wondering how those kids must have suffered living in a household like that. Barely any food, and the parents were just going out to score drugs. It makes me both very mad and very sad that that kids have to live that way. And I know I can't change anything about it, but that's the hard part about watching cases where there's children involved, or when I'm doing my layman duty and being in trial where the kids involved. It's just it makes me believe in a bigger evil in the world, that people can treat their own kids like that. It's I have the two now grown children, but I'm getting so angry just listening to her, and I'll bet you she knows that she ruined some part of those kids' life. I know some can get through it and be normal adults, but you can't live in a house like that and don't get scars on your soul. I'm sorry. It's just I had to win it. Yeah, it's poor babies, and pooh. I had hoped for some fireworks, and now it's my tear duct that's gonna get spicy.
In and out back then of my life, but I know one that was around a lot was Tabitha Scott.
And what about people from work? Were you close to anyone there?
Kimberly Frayne.
That's the wife of the guy who got.
You knew her from work?
Yes.
How long had you known Kimberly Frayne?
Since 2016, I believe.
And so back in October of 2019, how would you describe your relationship with her? You've called her a friend. Were the two of you close?
Yeah, we weren't as close as we used to be because I switched franchises, so I didn't see her that much, but started talking to her again because she was using drugs at the time and she had a car, and it was just another way to be able to get drugs.
Through Kimberly?
Yes.
Do you know where she lived back in September, October 2019?
I remember she lived on Russell Street in Manchester.
Had you been to her home on Russell Street?
Yes.
How many times would you say?
I don't know, probably about 4 or 5 times that I can remember.
And who did she live with back then in her home on Russell Street?
Her husband, Chris Frayne, and their daughter.
And you just mentioned Chris Frayne. Did you know him as well?
Yeah,
How'd you know him?
through Kim.
How would you describe your relationship with him?
It was, I don't know, we were all just friends. He was just a really nice person.
And have you kept in contact with either Chris or Kim Frayne?
I was in contact with Chris back in January, the end of December, January, before I got arrested.
And Kayla, I want to turn your attention specifically to October of 2019 and the theft of firearms. Do you know what I'm referring to?
Yes.
What am I referring to?
The firearms got taken and stolen out of Chris Frayne and Kimberly Frayne's house.
What kind of firearms were stolen?
I have no idea what the names of them are. I just know they were big. I don't remember the names.
Let's back up. You said firearms. Was this more than one?
Yeah. Yes.
How many are we referring to?
2 that I remember.
Okay. And how would you describe them?
Like a rifle type. I don't know. They were just big. Rifle, shotgun. I don't know what the names of them are. I don't know what they're called.
So a rifle, shotgun?
Yeah.
Did you personally see these?
Yes.
I want to talk about the first time that you saw them. Can you tell us about that?
I know that there were people at the house that came so that we could buy drugs off them, and Adam was showing them to those couple of people that came by trying to sell them. And I remember I was taking care of the kids, and I was looking to see what was going on in the living room from the kitchen, and it was just chaos in that house at that time, that same night.
Why is that? Why was it chaos?
It was just a lot of people going in and out, and taking care of the kids at the same time. It was, I don't even know.
And I think you said that night. Are we talking about nighttime?
Yes.
So the incident that you're describing, were you already aware at that point that the guns had been stolen from the Frayne house?
Yes.
All right. And you said people had come to sell drugs?
Yeah.
Was that to you or to someone else?
To Adam, but I was going to be doing the drugs too.
Okay. So they came to sell drugs to Adam. You were going to do the drugs as well.
Yes.
And it sounded like you said he offered to sell them the firearms.
Yeah, to trade them or buy them. Buy the firearms or trade them for drugs.
Okay. So he had them at that point and he was going to trade them or sell them?
Hi, Aaron. Thanks for giving me a view, and I fully understand that you would like to see the ending of the Travis Rudolph case too. I have David in the background, so he gets a view, but I'll keeping my focus on this and just jump back and forth between us. We'll both enjoy having you. And yeah, rifle and drugs and where those things are, there are some very, very sketchy people. So it just makes me sad and angry. And this Kim Frayne, her friend who had the weapons stolen, I believe she was home alone with a 2-year-old daughter the night the theft allegedly happened. And she had been on a 3-day bender. She hasn't slept for 3 days the night that the weapons were stolen. And if she could have scored any drugs, she would have been up that night too. It just makes me angry. I'm sorry, I shouldn't be emotional about lives I can't touch, and it's back in 2019. But that's the backside of people doing drugs. One thing is to ruin your own life and end up in the street or something, but with kids, it's just so much worth, in my opinion. But drugs are the devil.
Them for drugs?
Yes. Trade them for drugs or sell them for money.
At that point, did you know what he was wanting to get for them?
No, I had no idea because I don't know. I never dealt with that before. I just let him deal with it because I don't know.
And the individuals that you're referring to that came to the house, do you know their names?
I remember Mike. I don't remember his last name.
You're right, Aaron. There's a lot of shenanigans in this case. A lot of people has received some plea deals. Some have been granted immunity, and so far, we really didn't have anyone putting the guns in the head. Well, we have the sad fellow we had on Friday who saw the guns and saw him trade a gun, and that could be, let's say, the smoking gun, just to use the gun reference in this case, that guy have seen him with the gun and using the gun. He had listened to some conversations that was about the gun. So, but again, are they trustworthy? That's the big problem in this case. Is everybody is lying, everybody were doing drugs, and everybody seems just a little bit slow in the head. And that's, I really hope that the Kayla here comes off as believable, because she's the one who has to tie everything up. And what she's saying now, yeah, I saw two guns, some people were doing drugs, selling drugs, and he wanted to trade them with the guns. Yeah, we'll have to see, but I really hope that the defense is not going to do like they did with the other guy and spend 3 hours hammering away on the same questions. 30 minutes, make it clear that she's not trustworthy. She has been lying in other cases, and she's just changed her opinion when she got hit with a perjury charge. In and out, make it very unbelievable. Instead of making her sympathetic, she started out crying, and if Elaine is going ham with her, I believe we'll have her break down in the witness stand and in front of the jury. I'm not sure that's a good thing, especially a jury that knows full well there's a trial in August about killing the child. She's mentioned Harmony's name 3 times in passing already. I don't think that helps him, but so far the evidence, it's close to hearsay.
And I don't remember if the other 2 came that night, but there was always somebody with Mike all the time. And I just remember Ish and Manny. I don't know their last names.
Okay. So Mike, Ish, and Manny were there that night to sell Adam drugs?
I believe, yeah.
And I think you said he offered them the 2 guns?
Yeah.
And how long after you found out about the theft was this incident that you're describing?
It was within the couple of days, like the next night or something like that. It was around that time, same time.
You described it as chaos. How did Ish, Manny, and Mike react to this offer of the guns?
They were checking them out, and they were just checking them out, looking at them, and they were saying that they would think about it. But they also knew that the guns were missing from Chris and Kim's house, but they didn't know that those were those guns yet.
Okay.
Ish is the one that defense wants to blame for doing, for stealing the guns.
When did you first become, let me strike that question. At some point, did you become aware that the defendant had stolen Kim Frayne and Chris Frayne's firearms?
Yes.
And tell us about that.
I know Kim was freaking out because she noticed that they were missing, and she was trying to figure out where they went and who took them before Chris came back home, because he was on the road, truck driver or whatever he did.
That doesn't pair up
And
with
so
what, said.
Kim called and asked if we knew anything or if anybody was in and out the house. And then the other people that I mentioned that she was involved with, she was asking everybody if they've seen them or taken them or anything like that. But
That's not English.
and something Kim's, I guess the night they got stolen, well, I know the night they got stolen, Chris, Kim left her door open to her house and she was passed out.
And let me stop you there. Were you there that night the guns got stolen?
No,
But you said you know the night that they got stolen. How do you know that information?
because Kim was freaking out, and when she called, she said that her door was open, and then Adam went to go check on her too. Adam was supposed to be going to meet her. And when he pulled up to the house, the door was open and she was passed out, and he woke her up.
That's not.
Were you there for that?
No,
How do you know that?
because he told me.
And when you say he told me,
Adam told me.
So he told you that he went to her house that night?
Well, I already knew he was supposed to be going there
Okay. How did you know he was supposed to be going there?
because he was supposed to meet her to do something with drugs. It had something to do with drugs because that's the only time we really were seeing her.
Was that typical for the defendant back then to go to her house by himself?
Around that time, yeah, because he was the one with the car license, and we weren't gonna bring the kids out when it's nighttime and it's time for them to go to bed.
You described living on Guilford Street, and I think you said Kim lived on
Russell
Russell
Street.
How far apart, or how long would it take to get from your house to Kim's house?
I don't know, maybe like 10 minutes. Could be less, a little less or a little more, but she lived all the way on, like, almost near Hooksett. She lived like near the store that I met her working at, the South Beach Street store before Livingston Park.
It took about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, and I want to back up just a bit. You said the defendant told you that he went to her house, but you already knew he was going to her house.
Yeah.
And he told you that her door was open?
Yes.
And then what else did he tell you about that interaction?
And he said that she was passed out, and he woke her up, and when she woke up, she was freaking out about the guns missing.
When did he tell you that story?
It was that same night.
When he got home?
Yes.
And can you describe for us him getting back home?
I'm sorry, what?
Can you walk us through him returning home that night?
I know I was waiting for him, and I was laying down with the kids, and I think I heard him come through the door, because I always heard him come through the door. And when he came through the door, I don't remember him having anything when he came through the door.
Did
I
you
don't-
see him come through the door?
Yeah,
Okay.
but I think he was going in and out. And from what I remember, I don't remember seeing him bring anything in. I don't know where he put anything yet. Like, I don't know. I don't remember.
Did he have drugs with him that night?
Yes, I believe so.
And
I don't know. It's a fog because I know we were just getting high a lot.
you said you didn't know where he put them yet.
No,
And what are you referring to by them?
because
Life
they were
always getting
in
in
the
the way of fun.
attic of the house.
Have a nice
Sorry,
day.
when you say they were in the attic, what are you referring to?
The guns.
Okay. And did you see the attic of the house in those photos that I showed you?
Yes.
So you told us about the story the defendant told you about going to Kim Frane's home, finding the door open, she's passed out, and then she started, I think you said, freaking out
Yeah,
about the missing guns.
Yes.
Did he ever tell you a different story about that night?
No.
Hello, David's chat. Hello, David's channel.
Did you confront
Enjoy
him
your
about
time with
the
Rudolph
guns?
trial.
I just didn't know what to say. I was kind of upset about it because that they're supposed to be our friends, but I don't know. It was just messed up, that whole situation.
And when you say they're supposed to be our friends,
Kim and Chris,
why were you upset about it?
because I didn't like the guns, first of all, and second of all, he just took them without even and he could have given them back after they realized they were gone, but he didn't.
And you said he just took them. How do you know he took them?
Because he's told me that he took them.
Okay, and so I want to stop you just then. So you told me the story he told you about going into the home, finding Kim passed out, waking her up, her freaking out.
Yeah.
It sounds like there was a subsequent conversation, so another conversation later when he told you that they were stolen. Is that right?
Yes.
Can you tell us about that conversation?
And, all he said was that Kim was passed out and he ended up taking the guns. That's there wasn't really a
Good morning, Dave.
story with it.
And that upset you?
Yeah, because he took them from friends and I didn't want the guns in the house.
Took them from friends.
Yeah.
Were you still working with Kim at that point?
No, we worked at separate stores.
Did you ever talk to her about the theft that night?
Not that night, no.
Not that night, but
And to David's channel, I don't know if anyone has explained what this case is about. This case is about some guns that went missing in an environment filled with drugs, and it's not that important of a case in itself. It's just a felon doing stupid stuff. But the problem is that he's on trial in August for allegedly killing his own 5-year-old daughter 4 months after he got custody of this daughter. This is his ex-wife who had 2 or 3 kids with the suspect, and they lived a life filled with heroin and crack. So I'm pretty angry right now, and thank you, David, for sharing my stream, and thank you all for watching David. Remember, he has a Q&A stream tonight that everybody should be watching, and if you have the money, send a little gift his way.
did she discuss cameras with you at some point?
Yes.
And can you tell us about that interaction?
She told me that she called the police department and put a stolen, reported stolen items. And she said that she's going to see whoever did it because there was cameras, her neighbors had cameras. And she said that she was getting the camera like the camera footage or whatever so that she could see who took them.
Did that concern you at all?
Yeah.
And you'd already seen the guns at that point.
Yes.
What did you do with that information?
I told Adam.
What was his response?
Honestly, I don't remember. I know he was a little worried. I remember that, but I honestly don't remember.
So you just previously you described an interaction a night or two. It sounds like it was the night after the theft where Mike is there, Ish is there, and Manny's there.
Yes.
The defendant offered them the guns for sale or for trade,
Yes.
drugs or money.
Yes.
Did you ever witness any other transactions like that with those guns?
Not that I remember. I know there was another transaction, but I don't remember.
Her story doesn't line up with the meth fairy who was on trial on the stand first. She said that the guns went missing and she didn't know about it until her husband came home. This one says that Adam told her that the guns were missing the same night and that Kim called the police. So already there's a small problem that the two big witnesses in this case, their stories doesn't line up. And again, it's up to the jury to, what do the gut feelings say? Can you trust these women? And again, you can hear that they are probably some of those who were close to riding the short bus to school. So I don't know, but it seems the stories are not the same. That's for sure. And she's the one who was at the house, and her story is completely different from the one who lost the guns and the friend who talked about him watching one of the guns being sold. So this is, I'm not sure this is helping all that much.
Or how it went down, or I don't remember any of that, but I know there was.
Let me back up. The first transaction that you just described with Mike, Ish, and Manny, what were you doing during that?
I don't know. I was all around the house because the kids were awake and not in bed because they woke up from all the noise, which happened every time. And I was I tried keeping them in the kitchen and was trying to get them to relax, but that wasn't happening. And it was just a lot going on at once. The guys being in the house, and then also people getting high in the house, those people. But then they would be there and then they'd be gone real quick. They'd come in and then they'd leave.
Did the guns stay in the house that night?
Yes.
And I believe you said they were stored in the attic area?
Yes.
Were they stored in something?
I don't know.
Okay. Do you remember telling law enforcement that they were...
Basis?
Aiding in that proper foundation.
Rephrase the question, please.
Do you remember them being stored or wrapped in something?
Not that I remember.
Do you remember meeting with law enforcement?
Yes.
Do you remember a June 3rd proffer back in 2022?
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember telling law enforcement at that point?
Approach?
I'm not sure this is the best witness they had put on the stand, and she started out very emotional, and now she is looking a bit bored, and I'm not sure she is helping because her story is so far from the other stories we heard. And the reason they want her to say that it was wrapped in a blanket is because another witness has said he saw the AR-15 partially covered in a blanket. So they want her to corroborate that, but I don't think it's going super well for them right now.
You may proceed.
During that proffer, do you remember disclosing that the firearms were stored in a blue sheet and blanket?
Yes.
Is that what they were stored in?
From what? In the attic, because we didn't sleep in the attic anymore. But I know they were stored in the storage room. But I do remember the sheet.
Do you remember what color the sheet was?
Blue.
Was there also a blanket?
I don't remember a blanket.
But you remember a blue sheet?
Yes.
How many times did you see those firearms in your house?
About three times, I believe. I don't remember, but I know at least 3 times.
Okay, and I want to switch gears a little bit. I'm going to ask you, do you know someone named Kevin O'Leary?
Yes.
Do you know him by another name?
No.
Okay. How do you know Kevin O'Leary?
He lived up the hill from the Guilford Street house, and Adam met him somehow. I don't know how, but I guess he knew him or something. And he was smoking weed. That's what it was, smoking weed. And he smoked a blunt with him, and that's how I remember them meeting, but I don't know if they knew each other from before. I don't remember.
Okay. Would you see him regularly, Kevin?
Yes.
How often would you see Kevin?
Almost about every day, like from back in that period of the fall 2019.
So very frequently, it sounds like.
Yes.
What was your relationship like with Kevin?
He wasn't really my friend. He was Adam's friend. So, but he would obviously, like, he had respect for me because I'm Adam's wife, and he was very nice, but I didn't not like him, but I don't know. He was just there to me.
And you said he was Adam's friend.
Yes.
I believe that's the guy he tried to sell.
Did you ever observe a transaction between Adam and Kevin?
No, I don't remember a transaction happening, but I remember Kevin looking at the gun. One of the guns. I don't even know if we had them all anymore. I don't know, but in the house, but I know he looked at one. He was looking at one.
Do you remember, when Kevin was looking at the gun, was that with you or was that with Adam?
Both.
Okay, so you were there for that.
Yes.
What were you doing at the time?
Getting high.
At some point during that interaction, did Kevin and Adam leave your house with one of the firearms?
Not at that time, like not right at that moment. Kevin went home from what I remember, and because they did talk about leaving with it, and Adam had it put away under the bed we were sleeping in at the time. And I remember getting in a fight with him because I didn't want him to leave the house, especially with the gun. I just didn't. I got in an altercation with him about it and tried taking it from him, and he still took it and left anyways. And it was just not good. And if we kept arguing about it, the kids were gonna wake up.
Was it nighttime?
Yes,
And so the kids were asleep.
yes,
You said you didn't want him leaving with it, you didn't want him leaving, especially with a gun.
yes.
Why?
Because I was nervous and scared that he'd get in trouble
Why would he get in trouble for having a gun?
because he's a felon and not supposed to have one.
Does she still
So you told him not
love
to?
him?
Yes,
Why is she crying now?
Did he leave anyway?
yes.
That she's afraid that he could get into trouble.
You know where he
because
went
he's a
with it?
felon?
I remember him and Kevin talking about going up behind Rock Rimmon to shoot it off. That's what I remember.
Do you remember him coming back that evening?
I don't remember. I was sleeping with the kids at the time.
And after he left to go to, I think you said Rock Rimmon,
Yeah.
to shoot the gun, was that gun under your bed after that?
Not that I noticed.
I really don't get why she's emotional here. Is she in some way still in love with him?
Do you know any other individuals that the defendant attempted to sell those guns to?
No, not that I know of.
Do you know someone named Mark Reed?
Yeah. Yes.
She said that.
Do you know someone named Tone?
Yes.
Did the defendant ever offer the firearms to them?
Yes.
Just said
I
no.
don't know about Mark, but Tone, yes.
Can you tell us what you know of that?
Just offered to trade it for drugs.
Do you know Tone's full name?
Anthony Badero.
Kayla, I want to back up. So you mentioned these two firearms. Do you know anything about a stolen pistol from the Frayne home?
No, I do not.
Did you ever have a conversation with Kim about a missing handgun?
Not that I don't remember.
Not that I don't remember. So you remember.
So I want to back up to that June 3rd proffer that we discussed earlier. During that proffer, do you remember telling law enforcement that Kim mentioned a still or misplaced handgun, but that was well before the stolen guns in this case?
Yes.
Is that you remember that conversation with Kim?
Yes.
Is that what she told you?
Yes.
And was it well before your husband stole her guns?
Yes.
I don't know. She can suddenly remember everything when he tells her, you remember. Oh, yeah, I remember that. To me, that just seems a bit coached or whatever you would say. But he couldn't remember ever seeing anyone trying to buy the gun. Then she could remember one person, then maybe two persons, and then three, and now...
Kayla, do you remember where you were back on December 30th, 2021?
Yeah, exactly. Everything reads to her. I
Either
remember.
in a family shelter at Fit or at my mom's. I don't remember which one.
Judge, may I?
Yes?
I'm sorry, but that just to me seems a bit too convenient, as Josie says. She can't remember, and then he just said, "Can you remember?" You said, "Oh yeah, sure, yeah. We talked about it all the time." That comes away a bit like, yeah.
And so, Kayla,
I don't know if
handing
you
you
would say
the
she's
marked
coached,
identification
but,
is 46A through
like
E.
she's just saying yes to everything because she's gonna maybe get.
And I'm going to ask you to turn to the last page, E.
It'd be nice if you used the microphone, Elaine.
Okay.
And you can set those aside. So with respect to 46E, do you recognize anyone in those photos?
Yes.
Who do you recognize?
Kelsey and myself.
And you had mentioned a Kelsey Small earlier.
Yes.
Is that Kelsey Small in those photos?
Yes.
And you said yourself as well?
Yes.
What were you doing in those photographs?
Trading in phones at the phone machine thing that's at Walmart.
Oh, that's why this
For money.
is available.
So how did you arrive? You mentioned Kelsey Small. Were you with her that day?
Yes.
Were you with anyone else?
Adam.
Did Kelsey and Adam leave you at some point during your interaction there or your time there at Walmart?
Yes.
Do you know where they went?
No.
So Kayla, I want to switch gears. Do you know someone named Tara Hilbert?
Yes.
Can you tell us about your relationship with Tara?
She was the property manager at the apartment that we were last living in together, on Union Street in Manchester. And we ended up having a friendship. And it was a good friendship. Like, our kids played with each other outside, and we cooked together, had barbecues and stuff like that. It was, we were friends.
And when you say we cooked together, had barbecues, who do you mean when you refer to we?
Myself and Adam and Tara and her boyfriend,
Do you remember his name?
Josh.
Were you ever party to a conversation between Tara, her husband, and the defendant regarding firearms?
I don't remember.
Both of them said he bragged about selling guns, and he was paranoid because he believed the ATF.
Do you remember a conversation where the defendant accused you of telling the police on him in front of Tara, her husband?
Yes.
Can you tell us about that?
He was.
Yes?
Again, it doesn't seem to spring to mind very easy before she's asked about things. She can't remember anything, and then, oh, all of a sudden, yeah, sure, I can. And now, do you remember this? Yes, and she can't answer what she remembers. I'm sorry, but to me, I don't know. She doesn't seem that trustworthy, but maybe I wanted to seem more natural what she's telling, because there's too many times it's been. Do you remember after he's saying something, she remembers everything? It doesn't seem trustworthy to me, but what do I know? I don't know if she got a reduced sentence because she got two perjury charges. And normally when they have a deal, the prosecutor gets into it in the beginning. So we have to see if the defense brings up any deal, because why she lied before the grand jury, I don't understand that, because she's not with him anymore. And allegedly he used to beat her. And that's why I was surprised that she started crying when she talked about she was afraid he got into trouble because he was a felon with a gun. Why would you start crying 4 years later and after you left him because he was violent against you? It seems like she still has feelings for him. Oh, sorry.
Period of the fall.
You know Tone's full name?
Come on. Up.
And you, Tara, the defendant, and Tara's husband. Do you remember a conversation about these guns where the defendant accused you in front of Tara of telling law enforcement on him?
Yes, he accused me of a lot of things.
And during that conversation, did he say that you were working with the police?
Yes.
Magically, she remembers.
Were you still using drugs back then?
Yes, it was off and on.
And was the defendant still using back then?
Yes.
Had his temperament, or sorry, had his, I'll strike that question. So, Kayla, we spoke earlier about that June proffer.
Yes.
Do you remember who was party to that proffer? So who was there?
Myself, my lawyer, Paul, and Jesse, I forgot his last name.
Does O'Neill sound familiar?
Yeah.
Okay. And
Oh, there was some kind of deal. This is going to be interesting.
how did you come to be there for that proffer?
Because I got subpoenaed to be questioned about Harmony, and I lied to the grand jury because I was scared.
So let me back up. Had you been charged with a crime prior to meeting for that proffer?
Yes.
Your Honor, may I?
Oh, so there could be some deal going on. Again, that just makes her seem even more untrustworthy. Again, she can remember everything after she's told that she probably said something at some point of time. And now she had these two charges for perjury, and then she makes a deal. I don't know. And again, this case is just about it's only about witness testimonies that could put him behind bars. I know he's probably a pretty bad guy, but as we always say, and we have to be fair, swing and miss. Like if we like the defendant or we don't like the defendant. To me, if I was on that jury, I'm not sure I would convict him. There's been so many stories about who had the guns and who saw the guns and who sold the guns. So to me, this case is not open and shut. This is not I don't think it started out very well for the prosecution. I thought the defense yammered along too much, and now the witnesses are just not that strong. They seem a little untrustworthy in my eyes, and that's probably good for the defense, especially
So,
with the murder case.
Kayla, prior to meeting for that proffer, you said, I think you had been charged with a crime.
Yes.
Do you remember what you had been charged with?
Welfare fraud
Anything else?
and 2 counts of receiving stolen property.
And do you remember being charged with perjury as well?
Yes.
Okay. Did you receive a letter from the Department of Justice prior to going to that proffer meeting?
I don't remember.
Do you think it would help refresh your recollection if you saw the letter?
Yes.
So she's not a good girl either. She has enough on her plate. So again,
Oh, yeah.
did she rat him
I
out
remember
to
this.
get off easily?
And so, do you remember receiving a letter from the New Hampshire Department of Justice prior
Yes.
to that meeting?
Yes.
What is your understanding of what your obligation was going into that meeting?
To tell the truth?
And is that what you did in that proffer?
Yes.
Is that what you're doing here today?
Yes.
And so the activity that formed the basis for those charges you just mentioned, specifically receiving stolen property and perjury. I think you've explained the perjury, the receiving stolen property though. What was the basis of that charge?
The receiving stolen property was for the guns.
So the guns in this case,
Yes.
they were in your home?
Yes.
You knew they were stolen?
Yes.
And you knew that your husband was a felon?
Yes.
After you were charged with those crimes, did you reach a plea agreement with the Department of Justice?
Yes.
What did you plead guilty to?
2 counts of perjury.
And was that to resolve all of your charges?
Yes.
So including the welfare fraud and the receiving stolen property?
Yes.
That to me seems shady. That I don't know. Maybe it's because we don't have it in Denmark, but you just chalk up enough on the board and then say, well, if you say yes to these 2, the other ones goes away. That seems, I don't know. That's the part of the American system I really don't like, because does she understand what's happening around her? Does she understand that?
So Kayla, I'm handing you, it's been marked as States Exhibit 45 for
Probably,
identification purposes. And if you can just take a minute and look at that.
Yeah, I don't know. I really think that these plea deals sometimes they just seem so disingenuous that you can get some people to just admit to something to get rid of more things, and people.
So what is that document?
The memorandum agreement between the state of New Hampshire and myself.
And is that the memorandum agreement as you remember it regarding your sentence?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this point, I'd move to strike the ID and mark as full.
Any objection?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, approach.
Yeah, well, I don't like that. As Joseph said earlier, she got a reduced sentence for snitching on him. Maybe at least she got a reduced sentence for suddenly remembering that the guns were at her house, and she obviously had nothing at all to do with it. It was all Adam's fault. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I find that impressive that her memories just came back at the specific things the police were looking for. So I was hoping this testimony could really set the case, but to me it just seems like she's the worst witness yet for the prosecution, and she's the star witness. and she just doesn't seem trustworthy. It's a long one. But again, I don't know. I just, I really don't understand why her story is so different from all the other people too. And I know that the prosecutor has spoken to each and every one of them. So it seems strange that she has a totally different story.
You may proceed.
Thank you. So, Kayla, with respect to the sentence on those 2 felonies that you mentioned, what sentence did you receive?
I received the 2 counts of perjury.
And what was the sentence that was imposed?
I got 3.5 to 7 suspended, and a 3.5 to 7 with 1.5 suspended off my minimum.
And the 3.5 to 7 that you mentioned, is that the maximum prison sentence for each charge?
Yes.
And what portion of that prison sentence are you currently fulfilling right now?
So 3.5 to 7 with the 1.5 off my minimum.
And you mentioned a suspended portion of the sentence.
Yes.
What if anything do you have to abide by for that to
What if
remain
anything?
suspended?
I have to state as what the memorandum agreement is between myself and the state.
So is it suspended upon the conditions and continued parole?
Yes. But it's also suspended for, I have 10 years over my head.
And what is your obligation with respect to that agreement? What do you have to do?
I have to abide by the state.
And with respect to this trial, what is your obligation under that agreement?
To tell the truth.
Stay off drugs.
What happens if you violate those conditions?
I can get all the charges that I have that got dismissed, and ones that I don't have, they can charge me with anything and take back everything that we agreed on.
So, Kayla, I want to briefly talk about a few of the things that we've mentioned here today, we've discussed today. You testified earlier that the defendant had this transaction with Manny, Ish, and Mike.
Yes.
And you also testified about a transaction and maybe the defendant leaving the house to shoot the gun with Kevin.
Yeah.
Again, a deal like that, saying, okay, you get 3.5 years with 1.5 years suspended. But if you say anything in this trial or the next trial that's not the truth, and what is the truth, that's the state that can set the parameter of the truth suddenly. Then you're going back into jail. If you had up to 10 years in prison, would you say, oh, I remember everything the state wants me to remember? Or, I'm sorry, that this witness has not been the fireworks I wanted. And this makes the prosecution, in my opinion, it makes their case weaker, because she seems like she took a deal. And I don't know. It's up to the jury as always, but I had really believed that this would really seal this case for me, having her understand. But I'm not looking forward to cross on this witness, because they could really hammer this plea deal and do it short and not talk for hours about details, because she doesn't know any details. But this plea deal makes this look, I can't say anything is bought and paid for, but it just smells like a fish that's been sitting out in the sun for a couple of weeks.
Yes.
And that you didn't see the gun after that?
No. Not that I remember.
And you testified that you observed the defendant attempting to sell the guns, the stolen guns, for drugs and or money.
Yes.
Who was the individual that was doing all of those things you just described?
Adam Montgomery.
And do you see Adam Montgomery here in the courtroom?
Yes.
Can you go ahead and point to him and describe the color of his shirt?
He's wearing a pink shirt.
Do you have any reason to protect him here today?
I'm sorry.
Do you have any reason to protect him here today?
No.
And Your Honor, if the record could reflect, the witness has identified the defendant.
Record so reflects.
If I can have just a moment.
Yes, you may. Seated for just a moment. We are going to take a break now. This is a good time for our mid-morning break. So ladies and gentlemen, about 15 minutes, okay? All rise for the jurors, please. You can remain.
I don't know what you all think, but this didn't help the case, in my opinion. This just made it to me, and maybe it's because we have watched all those trials from Kenosha, but it seemed like you can get a deal in this case if you're I'm not saying if you're willing to lie for to the police and for the police, but a lot of the witnesses had reduced time, and a lot of the witnesses are saying similar things. I just don't understand. This witness is not in line with the other witnesses. The Kim story was that she woke up in the morning, there was a crack pipe with crack in it on the counter, and she didn't realize the guns were gone before her husband came home at night, and there were 2 long guns and a pistol missing. And her husband contacted the police, and he was angry about it, and she lied about other things that she had pawned away to fund her drug habit. That was her story. And then she said, well, I told the drug friend guys that she had cameras at her house, and even though people knew that that was a lie. Then we had a guy come in and said, yeah, I got a lot of Facebook messages where Adam was trying to sell him the guns, but he didn't have the amount of cocaine he wanted for the guns, so he couldn't get it. That was his history. So again, implying that Adam had something to do with selling the guns, but not that he was the one holding the guns. Then we had the friend where they used his basement to do drugs, and he had a story about Adam showing up at his house, talking to Kim, the one who said the guns were stolen, and she told him about the cameras, and he was afterwards in the car, he was laughing, saying, well, I know there's no cameras because then I would have been in prison already. And then when they returned to his house, he showed him the guns with Kayla in the kitchen. She didn't mention that today, that Mike was over and he was shown the guns. And Mike also said that he was at his house when Adam showed up with the AR-15 wrapped in a blanket, and then they went and sold it at a car park to somebody, and got some dope for it. And that was probably the best witness. And today she has told a totally different story, that Adam was at Kim's house, but when he came, he found the door open and Kim sleeping. And then Kim said that she was the one contacting the police and reporting things stolen. This story just, yeah, the more witnesses, the more muddier this case gets. And that's a problem for the prosecution, in my opinion, because they had a really good start. They had a strong opening. They had some okay witnesses. and the defense has been naming this Ish guy all the time. I don't know if Ish is going to show up and be called to testify and how trustworthy he is, but as it seems right now, is there enough there to get him convicted? Right now, I would say there's maybe I would say he facilitating he was facilitating the getting selling the guns, but I'm did he steal them? I'm not sure. And yeah, he probably had them at the house, but I'm not sure that I would convict him of this as things are right now, because we really don't have any evidence of it other than a lot of druggies talking about it. So I really don't. I was pretty sure day one that I thought he was guilty, and day two, yeah, I was pretty sure too. But today, where they should hammer home the guilt because you have a eyewitness living with him, I get less sure of his guilt. That's for me, that's a problem for the prosecution. That her story wasn't more coherent, and all those. Do you remember? No, I don't remember. Do you remember telling the police? Yes, I remember everything. It just, again, it seems like it seems so wrong that the case is not stronger for the prosecution. I know he's a bad guy. I know the big case is the one about his daughter. But right now, would I convict him? I'm not sure. Without knowing the stuff about the daughter, I'm really not sure. And I believe that the daughter is going to be mentioned enough times to paint him as a bad guy, so the jury will convict him on that alone. But this case is just getting weaker and weaker for the prosecution. Yeah, I thought it was an open and shut case after day one, but as we often see when the full picture is shown, there are a lot of more gray nuances than just black and white. And again, it could be because everybody was high, everybody was doing drugs, and everybody are criminals. So they just don't seem 100% truthful. And again, they can remember what the police are asking them 100%. But when the defense asked them in a slightly different way, they can't remember anything. And I hope they're not putting Elaine on the cross-examination, because she loses her way. She hasn't got her story straight. You could do this in 30 minutes. They spend about 2 hours right now talking about it, trying to build her up. And I'm less certain now than after 5 minutes of her understand. If you can, from the defense side, in 30 minutes say, why did you lie at the first time, and why should we believe you're not lying now? Oh, because then I will get 10 years. So you would do everything to stay out of prison. Yeah, okay, but you would never lie, and you're telling the truth today. Yeah. You could really easily paint her as somebody lying on the stand just to get out of her own sentence. But I really hope that defense doesn't do what they have done to all the other witnesses, because when Elaine gets going, I get more and more and more confused, because she always asks questions that you don't need to have the answers to. Just stick to the facts. Yeah, you have the best chat, and I love to steal some of them or borrow them. And Is it the mother who's on the stand now in your trial? I have you on my iPad, so you get the extra view. But it will be interesting. I'm fearful that Elaine are gonna mock this up like she did with the poor guy who saw the guns, or allegedly saw the guns, because she started out making him seem really untrustworthy, and then 2 seconds later, she went down a route that made me feel sorry for him. As I said yesterday, Saturday, when I saw part 2 of the Friday stream, I just wanted to hug this poor guy. He seemed like he was just someone who accidentally got messed up with some bad people. And the more she hammered him, the more I felt sorry for him. So again, less is more most of the times. But let's see if they can stick to a tight script, because as I often complain in these cases, American lawyers like to talk way too much. And I don't know if it's because they believe people are stupid, or they believe they are very good storytellers, but most of the time they're just telling a story that no one can follow along with. And I don't know about you, but we've been at this for 2 hours, and it got too long for the prosecution as well. I could have 1 hour could have been enough, but because I wanna stand up, stretch. My back is killing me sitting in this chair, and I can swivel around. I'm not sure the jurors has just as nice a chair as I do, so they're gonna lose their concentration and can't remember what's said in the last part of the testimony. That's why I don't understand why they talk so much in these cases. You can prove a lot more, a lot clearer, if you just have the facts straight and to the point. Not all this, well, do you remember? Well, you said, well, you did. Just keep it short, keep it clear. It's just like talking to a kid. Like I heard once, if you talk to the stupidest person in the room and make them understand, the smartest person can do too. And most of the time, it's not using big words and long sentences, because people they zone out when you're talking for so long. Especially when you keep going back and forward in the same story, it's so hard to keep track of. And I'm not sure if they can do notes in this case. Sometimes we hear that the jury are not allowed to take notes, which I can't understand, because if you have a piece of paper and a pen, you can write something. Then, in my mind, I'm keeping better track of the facts than if I'm just staring into a screen like I'm doing right now. I have my pad and my pen, and I write things down if I want to ask David something, because I don't know anything about the finer details of the law. I'm just a guy with a lot of years experience as a layman judge in Denmark, or juror is probably what you would call it in the US. And I have seen my share of cases, but the law is still different from country to country. So in my opinion, I would like it shorter than we have seen so far. Come on, Eileen. Come on, let's pick it up. That's the hardest part about doing these streams. It's to fill the void when there's nothing on stream and you have to talk. But it's my first trial coverage. I'm hoping I'm doing well enough to fill the boring parts of the trial. And I feel I'm getting better and better at putting my English words together. It's hard when it's not your native language. And she's just as bored as me dancing in the chair. Bum, 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 bum. Well, thank you. I'm trying, and every day I'm using it, it gets better and better. It's a bit rusty, but the hardest part is using all these lawyer terms. I have to understand what they mean and then try to put them in the right place in the sentence.
All rise for the jury, please. Not quite ready.
Action, jury.
Those benches look so rough to sit on for such a long time. It must be a real
Please be seated.
pain in the buttocks to sit there for 2 hours straight.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Kayla. My name's Caroline Smith. How are you?
I'm good.
Okay. I have some questions to ask you about what you just testified to. First, I want to kind of get a bit of a timeline. You were arrested and incarcerated on charges in January of last year, right?
Yes.
That was 2022, right?
Yes.
And when you were incarcerated in January, and that was the welfare fraud that you referred to,
Yes.
and you were not able to make bail at that time, right?
Correct.
So you were incarcerated for a couple of months.
Yes.
And around April 13, 2022, you were arrested for receiving stolen property regarding the guns at the Fran residence, right?
Yes.
And you were still incarcerated at that time, right?
Yes.
And then you were not guilty of those charges, right?
No.
And you intended to fight those charges, right?
Yes.
And in fact, you were moving towards a hearing to fight the charges very early on in court, right?
Yes.
And before that hearing, or I
What happened in
think
this
the
case?
hearing was postponed because you reached an agreement with the state on bail to get out, right?
Yes.
So that hearing was called a probable cause hearing, right?
Yes.
To see if the state had enough evidence to hold you or to actually charge you, right?
Yes.
And you didn't have that because you got the agreement on bail.
Yes.
And you did not, the guns involved, by the way, were receiving receiving or retain the property of another, a shotgun belonging to CF, which was, you knew to be Chris Rain, right?
Yes.
Knowing it had been stolen or believing it probably had been stolen with the purpose to deprive Chris Rain, right?
Yes.
And you got a second charge that was pretty much the same thing except for referring to a rifle.
Yes.
And you did not receive a shotgun that belonged to Chris Frayne. Is that right?
Correct.
You didn't retain a shotgun belonging to Chris Frayne. Is that right?
Yes.
You didn't receive a rifle belonging to Chris Frayne, right?
Right.
And you didn't receive retain a rifle belonging to Chris Frayne, right?
Yes.
You didn't possess any of Chris Frayne's guns, right?
No.
You didn't control any of Chris Frayne's guns, right?
Yes.
And in fact, you didn't touch any of Chris Frayne's guns, right?
Yes.
And you were charged with that anyway, correct?
Yes.
And you were out on bail based on your agreement with the state and didn't go forward with that hearing. So the bail then was 5,000 personal recognizance, right?
Yes.
And what that means is you don't actually pay up $5,000, right?
Right.
You don't actually have to pay any cash.
Now I'm just hoping she can land this plane, because so far she's been very good. She has sown all the doubt in the world about, did you tell the truth or did you just want to get out on bail and struck a deal with the state. If she can land this plane, then it's good. But if she goes into what I'm fearing, moving back and forth in the timeline, then she's going to muddy the water. Right now, she seems less believable than when she took the stand, and it seems like it's pay to play from the state. Land the plane. Don't miss the landing by start talking about timelines that no one can remember, going backward and forward, starting a question saying, I forgot. It's a really good start from Lane this time. Yes, and I don't know if they're in some kind of methadone treatment or how you treat crack, because everyone who says they have been clean for between 18 and 18 months and 3 years, they all sound like they're some kind of high. It's if it's a way you speak in New Hampshire or whatever, I don't know, but especially the meth fairy the first day, when she came back from lunch, she seemed like she has been out getting a little Colombian pick-me-up. She was wasted when she came back, in my opinion, but they are all clean, and you can believe them because you can't lie in court. That much I know.
Right?
Right.
It is just a promise that you'll follow the conditions or they can hold you on the 5,000, right?
Yes.
And so you made a promise with them to follow certain conditions of bail, right?
Yes.
And that agreement was made on May 6th. Does that sound right to you?
Yes.
And you got out on May 6th.
Yes.
So you had been in from January, February, March, and April, and then got out on May 6th.
Yes.
And on June 3rd, you sat down with police to talk to them, right?
Yes.
And you sat down with police of your own free will, right?
Yes.
That you had the services of an attorney, right?
Yes.
And that attorney was actually there when you sat down with the police, right?
Yes.
And he was there to help you if you needed it, right?
Yes.
And you were on bail when you went there, right?
Yes.
But while you were there talking, or actually that morning, probably earlier, you were charged with the perjury charges that you talked about, right?
Yes.
And so you stayed in jail for a couple of more days, but you got out a few days later on bail again, right?
Yes.
And on June 20th, this was after you talked to the police on June 3rd about those gun charges and what you said happened, right?
Yes.
And on June 20th, after your June 3rd conversation with police, you actually got indicted on receiving stolen property, right?
Yes.
The difference was the first charge was just the police writing up the charge and serving you and holding you. But on June 20, after you talked to the police,
Objection, Your Honor, counsel's testifying.
Overruled.
a grand jury, well, your case was presented to a grand jury and you got indicted, right?
Yes.
And you had not given the police any information on June 3rd that you received a shotgun belonging to Chris Frayne, right?
I don't remember.
You might have.
I said I don't remember.
Okay. Did you receive a shotgun from Chris Frayne?
I didn't know.
Okay. Did you tell the police on June 3rd that you got a shotgun from Chris Frayne?
No.
And you did not get a rifle, receive a rifle from Chris Frayne, right?
Right.
And you told them that, or your story included that you didn't receive a rifle from Chris Frayne, right?
Right.
And that you had not possessed any of Chris Frayne's guns, right?
Right.
And that you had not controlled any of Chris Frayne's guns.
Now she gets
right?
repetitive.
Right.
And that you had not touched any of Chris Frayne's guns.
We know this.
right?
Right.
Said that in the
And
first
you
5
were
minutes.
still indicted after you talked to the police about all that on June 20th, 2022, right?
Yes.
And those were, by the way, the same charges that you had been served with back in April. Pretty much the same, right?
Yes.
And when you went to court or had a court date for arraignment on those charges, you pled not guilty, right?
Right.
Because you were not guilty, right?
Right.
And you had told the police on June 3rd that you were near the firearms, right?
Yes.
That you were in the same room as the firearms, right?
Yes.
That at some point you knew the firearms were there, right?
Yes.
But that you were just in a drug fog and weren't a part of that whole thing, right?
Yes.
And that all you wanted was to get some drugs from what was going on that you described, right?
Yes.
And you've always said that you're not guilty of those charges, right?
Yes.
And the state dropped the charges on November 18, 2022, right?
Yes.
And that was based on the agreement that you talked about in direct examination, right?
Yes.
For the other charges.
Yes.
And yet, I think you said that the receiving stolen property charges could still come back if you did something wrong, right?
Yes.
Now,
Keep your story
I
straight.
think I heard you testify that Kim Frayne freaked when she discovered the guns were missing and was calling around to everybody before Chris got home because she was frantic. Is that right?
Yes.
And you didn't tell the police that on June 3rd, right?
Right.
Okay, so I think your testimony is, and when would that be? Would that be like in the morning, noon, afternoon?
I don't remember.
Okay. But in any event, you found out that Kim had some missing guns because she actually called and said, there's missing guns. I've got to get them back before Chris gets home and finds out. Right?
Yes.
Okay.
That's a good point because that's
So-
against what Kim said.
When you were arrested
But she
in
has to
April
keep talking in
of
a way so you can follow along.
2022, you're entitled to get police reports and stuff like that about what you were arrested on, right?
Yes.
It was called discovery, right?
Yes.
And the discovery, it contained police reports and stuff like that, right?
Yes.
So before you talked to the police on June 3rd, you were able to read what other people were saying was going on, right?
Yes.
And you were able to get a description of what other people had said. Is that right?
Yes.
And you were able to get a description of the guns, right?
Yes.
And you were able to get a description of what happened to the guns and whether they were found or not, right?
Yes.
Better make
And,
really sure that she read those reports. Well, she's gonna look. Very
You read in
stupid.
discovery. Well, no. You actually read in discovery that the names of people that you were telling the police came to your house, right?
They didn't come to my house. I don't remember that, but yeah.
Well, you told the police that two white guys had come to your house and Adam was selling them drugs for money. You don't recall their names, but you saw their names in the discovery, right?
Yes.
Oh, that's
So this description of two white guys coming to your house was something that you had seen in discovery.
Yes.
Okay. Somebody else had talked about that in discovery. Is that right?
I don't remember.
that was a pretty good hit for Elaine. That makes her less trustworthy. That she read about it and took the names off the report because the police had put them in the report. But keep on going.
And you told the police that these two guys were both white. You didn't remember their names until you saw it in the paper, meaning discovery, right?
Right.
And that you had kept thinking it was all about Manny, Ish, and Mike in that situation, right?
Yes.
So your recollection was Manny, Ish, and Mike with the guns until you read discovery of what somebody else said. And then you started to think, oh, two white guys came over, right?
I wasn't thinking. I remembered.
Okay. Okay. And you actually told the police that you could recall Kim saying that her guns were stolen, right?
Yes.
And you had a recollection of Adam going to Kim's that night, right?
Yes.
And you had a recollection of Adam coming back that night, right?
Yes.
But you had no recollection of Adam bringing any guns in the house, right?
Right.
And so I think you testified on direct. Kim lives 10 minutes away, give or take. And you described Adam going to Kim's and coming back and describing to you what happened, right?
Yes.
And you said, I think on direct here, that her house was wide open. Her door was wide open, right?
Yes.
And when you talked to the police, you had a little bit more detail about that, right?
I don't remember.
Well, you said that Adam told you that he left and he came back and said that Kim's door was open and that the dog didn't even bark and Kim was passed out. Do you recall telling the police that?
Yes.
And so the detail about the dog didn't bark is something that you said that Adam said to you, right?
Yes.
Not something that you read in Discovery.
No.
And so Adam came home and said Kim's door was open, the dog didn't even bark, and she was passed out, right?
Yeah.
And he said Kim woke up and she said the guns were missing.
Yes.
And you repeated that more than once in your statement to police, right? On the 3rd.
Yes.
And you said that he had left around 10 or 11 at night, right?
Yes.
And that he had been gone for about 20 minutes, maybe as much as a half an hour.
Yes.
And that was something that you specifically recalled about Adam's
Not
absence
much
that
time
night,
to
right?
go
Yes.
down to a house, 10 minutes
And
away.
so it was a pretty quick trip that he was gone and
I
back.
only left for 10,
right?
20 minutes.
Yes.
No more unusual than any other time that he may have gone over there to pick her up to help her get drugs or something.
No.
Kim said they were together all
And
night.
in that 20 minutes to a half an hour, he said the door was open and Kim said the guns are missing, right?
Yeah.
This story is way different from what Kim told.
So
So
the third time, well, you repeated it again. And again, I think that you said to the police a third time that Adam came home about 20 minutes after he left and said the door was wide open, Kim was passed out, and Kim said the guns were missing and the dogs didn't even bark.
Yes.
Okay. And this seemed consistent with other things that you had read in Discovery, right?
I didn't read the full Discovery. I just saw a couple of names.
Okay. Okay. Well, you said that when you were charged with receiving, you hadn't done it, right?
Right.
And you hadn't touched the guns, possessed, or controlled them in any way, right?
Right.
And so you wanted to find out what somebody else had said to make them think that you had received or retained, the police had received or retained. I lost myself on that question. Let me
yeah, you did
rephrase it,
again.
okay?
Mm-hmm.
But when you were charged with receiving something you knew that you had never done, and you had access to the police reports, you kind of wanted to know what people were saying about you that got you arrested on those charges, right?
Yes.
So you reviewed that Discovery.
I didn't review the whole Discovery.
Okay. Just you wanted to see what people were saying that made the police arrest you, right?
Yeah, my lawyer showed me a couple of sentences in it that he highlighted, but I didn't see the whole thing.
Okay. Okay. And so you talked to your lawyer about what people were saying that got you arrested.
Her biggest
Yes.
problem is
Okay.
she can't keep it straight and talk.
Now,
In
you
a full
told the
sentence.
police back in June that you first learned that the guns were in the house the day that Kevin O'Leary came over. Do you recall that?
No.
Okay.
And again, you have her inconsistencies with Kim's story, and you have that people might very easy find that this is help memory. Let us call it that. You've been going for almost half an hour,
I'm going to show you.
and you mucked up the timeline because you had a straight timeline that indicated that she might
Copy
have helped
of, there was a
understand
transcript of
what
your
she should say. And now she's going to
interview.
go back to the interview, go back to
Did
dates,
you
go back
review
to
that before trial?
everything.
No.
Did you review
not
the
necessary.
content of the interview with the state before testifying here?
No.
Okay, I'm gonna show you, well,
If she just had her ducks in a row, she should just go through the timeline and say, "Isn't it funny that you were left? You got out on bail just as you started remembering the gun deals. Isn't it funny that when you were arrested
copy
again,
of
they found
the
you,
transcript of your
they
reporting.
accused you of these things, even though you claim you're
Let me
innocent?
also clarify this.
Isn't it funny that
When
you
the state
remember the
was
names?
talking about your conversation
be
with the
more-
police on June 3rd, he kept
it would be
referring
much
to
more
it as a
powerful.
proffer. But it was a question and answer situation where you were talking about the guns, right?
Yes.
I'm going to show you.
And again, how much does it change the story that for me, after the state was done, I had the feeling that she might have been given a sweetheart deal. And Elaine could have wrapped it up in 30 minutes, and then you had a timeline that said, "Ooh, isn't it funny? She gets arrested, hasn't money for bail, but get out on bail just as she starts singing about this case. She's put back in, and when she's charged and given a discovery, she can suddenly remember names. You could do it in 30 minutes
Give
and
you a
get out.
chance
But
to look
maybe
at
it's
this.
because you want to
This
make
is a recording of Caleb Montgomery interview
very
part one.
unfaithful to the murder trial.
And then
But I think she's just mocking up a very clear suspicion that this might not be 100% truthful. And it might be a deal with the
I
police.
lost my page with my finger
Yeah,
there.
of course you did. Why did
And here I have a proffer interview with Kayla Montgomery, second half, 6/3/2022, right?
Yep.
And I'm going to show you page 156, I think I said. And ask you to review it, and then I'm going to ask you a question, okay? Now, you can feel free to review any part of that you want, but I'll be asking you a question about page 156, okay? Starting from there and down.
Okay.
Take your time.
I know she wants to make it very, very clear to the jury that she's not truthful. But again, couldn't you do that with implying that the state bought her testimony by giving her a lighter sentence?
Okay? You ready for
Do
me
you
to
really
ask?
need to
Yeah.
spend? It's half an hour now, and I'm sure we'll be going to lunch and maybe after lunch, and we won't get anything new.
So when
That's
you
the
were
problem.
doing that question and answer with the police, one of the officers asked you, and do you remember Detective Rahill?
No.
Name? No? Okay. One of the officers asked you, and when was the first time you found out that the guns were in the house? And you said, when, what's his name? When Kevin O'Leary, that I know of, came over, and then I found out that I thought that it was like Kevin came over, and then Ish and Manny and Mike came over.
Hi, Wendy. Thank you for dropping in and saying hello. And I've seen you over at David's place. It's nice to see you drop in here and drop in there and supporting both of us. But this case is a little less with fights and a lot more drugs in this case.
And Adam was like talking, saying, oh, look at these, look at these. Is that right?
Yes.
But you actually had on direct that Ish and Mike and Manny were over before Kevin O'Leary, right?
Yeah, I don't remember when they were always in the house and then gone, and then it's like a mixed up situation. You never know who's coming in and who's going out.
Watch out for
Okay,
the drugs.
so actually that
She
whole night
is doing
is
3
kind of
years.
a mixed up
so-
situation, right?
It's not good.
Because after that night, when you learn the day that you learn the guns are in the house, and Ish and Mike and Manny are over, and Kevin O'Leary's over. But after that, you really didn't think about this case at all until you got arrested for it, right?
Right.
So that was like a one-day thing, and then you're off on other days of working and coming home with the kids and then doing drugs in the evening, right?
Yes.
And that particular day was not particularly standout after it was over, right?
Right.
Okay. And for the most part, as long as you had drugs, you weren't caring what was going on around you, right?
Right.
Okay.
Isn't that most druggies? If you have drugs, you don't care.
No idea how things got so messed up there. Sorry.
It's because you're a messed up clown.
So you told the police you first learned that guns were in the house when Kevin O'Leary came over. By the way, do you also know Kevin O'Leary as Kevin LaBelle?
I found that out. I didn't know that was his name too.
How'd you find it out?
The cops told me.
So the cops gave you some information too about your case that you didn't know?
Yeah.
And again, a long pause. Why don't you have this story written?
And you also, and I think you said it on direct, that Adam had not, when you were there and Adam came home from Kim's, you saw him come in and he didn't have the guns on him, right?
Right.
But then you said that he was in and out through the night, right?
Right.
And you also said on direct that Adam eventually told you what was going on?
Yes.
And I think that you said that Adam told you that he had ended up taking them to a friend's house, right?
Yes.
Now, this conversation that you're having with Adam about what's going on is after
Trying to
some
be her
things are
tattoo
going
artist
on with the guns
that had to
up in
spend
the
2 or 3
attic,
hours
right?
tattooing her in the face, just asking what she wanted.
I don't remember.
The rest of
Well,
the
he
day.
didn't tell you, in your story, he doesn't say anything about what happened at Kim's, other than he went there, the door was open, Kim was asleep, the dog didn't bark, and he woke her up and she said the guns were missing, right?
Right.
And then sometime after you're discovering there's something going on with guns in your attic, you confront him about it, right?
Right.
That's what you told the police, right?
Right.
And he told you that he had taken them to a friend's house, right?
Right.
And you didn't see him bring them in the house, right?
No.
So if you took them to a friend's house, the going in and out was just normal going in and out, right?
Yeah.
And at some point or other, they end up in your attic, right?
Yes.
And Manny, Ish, and Mike were over.
Yes.
And Manny, Ish, and Mike were talking about the guns.
Yes.
And the guns were there at the house when Manny, Ish, and Mike were there at the house.
Yes.
But you never saw how the guns got in the house.
Right.
She was working at the time. There is a window of 8 hours where the guns had gone into the house without her knowing.
And still, with
Come on, Eileen. You don't need it.
Adam taking guns to a friend's house, as you say, he said, it was still a pretty quick trip to Kim's and back, right?
Yes.
And you say that at some point you confront Adam about the guns, right?
Yes.
And you have said sometime the next day, Kim is calling around,
This is the
freaking
fourth
out
time
because
she's
the guns
asking
are missing and
about
Chris
this.
is not
We
home.
all know
Right.
that
And
Kim
when he gets
didn't tell
home,
the same
he's
story.
going to be upset.
Why are we going
So
back over and over and over and over?
you don't
and
know what day
over
that was,
and
right?
Over.
No.
Okay, but fair to say that this is
Endelig,
going on
Eileen.
before Chris gets home, right?
Right.
Because you say that Kim is trying to find out what happened so that she can take care of it before Chris gets home. right?
Yes.
She doesn't want Chris to know that the guns are missing in your story, right?
Right.
And that she was calling around to everyone, including you, in your story, right?
Yes.
And so you say that you confront Adam, and he tells you that he finds Kim asleep, the door's wide open, the dog doesn't bark, and he finds the guns and takes them out to the car. And then he comes back in and wakes Kim up and says the first thing that she says when he wakes her is that the guns are missing. That's what he told you?
Yes.
And that's sort of what you were telling the jury on direct, right?
Yes.
And it's sort of the same thing that you said that he told you that night when he got home, but just added the thing about the guns, right?
Right.
And so you've been to Kim's house, right?
Yes.
And you've been inside,
Yes.
I think you said 4 or 5 times.
Yeah, something like that.
And you knew that Kim and Chris were living in the same house, but not really so well together, right?
Right.
And she was sleeping on the couch, right?
Yeah, I don't remember.
Okay. Well, in any event, you've been in there, you've been in her living room. There's not a gun case in the living room, right?
Right.
There's no guns on the wall or on display in the living room, right?
Right.
And if you were in the living room and you suddenly woke up, well, if you were in the living room, you wouldn't notice whether guns were missing in the rest of the house because you never would have seen them in the living room, right? Oh, that was terrible. Let me try again.
Yeah, it was terrible.
Okay.
Kim said
If you're in the living room,
that she put the guns in the
you
living room.
don't
If
see
you wanna
guns
go with
while
that
you've
story.
been there, right?
Right.
They're not visible in the living room, right?
No.
Okay. At least for however they've kept them while you've been there.
Right.
Got lost again.
And you also told police that you did see the guns, right?
Right.
So like right after it happened, right?
She said
Yeah.
she didn't remember when.
Meaning kind of the next day after Adam came back from Kim's place, right?
Yeah.
And you told the police that you saw the guns and it was there when people were in your house, like Ish, Manny, and Mike. You didn't know what kind of guns, but the guns were in the house, right?
Right.
When the 3 of them were there.
Right.
And you had not seen how they got in the house.
Right.
And I think I heard you say on direct that Mike was there, and Mike, did you say he's never alone or he's always with somebody?
He always has somebody with him. When he came to the house, he was always had somebody with him.
Okay, not necessarily Ish and Manny, right?
Not that I remember.
Okay. So Ish and Manny may have come over at some point, and then Mike and whoever was with him at another point that same day after Adam had gone to Kim's.
Right.
Okay. But whoever he had with him, you didn't necessarily know.
No.
Okay. And you told police that you saw an exchange with two white guys, right?
Right.
And one guy was the driver and the other guy had drugs and money, right?
Right.
And that they walked out of the house with both guns that day, right?
Right.
Was that Mike and whoever goes with him?
No.
Okay. So Mike is there, but it's another set of people that go, I think you call it a transaction.
Right.
So it's Mike-ish and Manny might be there, but these guys are different people, two white guys, right?
They weren't there during that transaction.
Okay. Okay. Is that clear? Is
Yes.
that really, really clear?
Yeah.
Okay. So
Okay.
So-
okay.
is there one? Okay. So you didn't recall if you were in the room when the thing with the white guys happened, right?
Right.
That was up in the attic, right?
Right.
And you did say that they walked out of the house with both guns that day, right?
Right.
And that was sometime afternoon, after Adam was at Kim's house.
That was like weeks after. It
Weeks
wasn't, yeah, it wasn't right after.
Okay, so weeks after, and is that when you're talking about Halloween? Sometime around Halloween?
I don't remember, but I know it was way after. It was around that time period.
Okay, so we'll go on.
Please go on. Again, she lost her way.
And one of the things that you weren't paying attention about the white guys in your house up in the attic was that all you wanted was effing drugs. You didn't care what was going on.
Right.
And you did say that those guys were over at the end of October, but before Halloween, right?
Right.
And that was your recollection that it was the end of October, but before Halloween.
Right.
Probably within a week of that? Is that what
Yeah,
you
it was
were
around that time.
Okay. October 31st is Halloween.
Right.
And October 31st, it goes without saying, is about 9 days after October 22nd, right?
Right.
And you said that Adam did a trade that day. There were two of them. A shotgun with a scope is what you called it, right?
Right.
And you had said that you thought that they took both of the guns that day, weeks around Halloween after Adam was over at Kim's house.
Right.
Okay. And that both guns left the house that day, right?
Right.
And you told the police that you thought it was Kevin O'Leary who had done that transaction, right?
Right.
Bought one of those guns, right?
Right.
And the other was the driver. So that there was a driver, the two white guys, there was a driver and the guy doing the transaction.
Right.
It was Kevin and somebody else, right?
Right.
That had taken the shotgun and the rifle.
Right.
And
Come on, Eileen. Now you have discredited.
I believe you said on
he was
direct
in the car when the
that
AR
you
was
were
blown.
evicted in November,
Yes.
and that was the end of November, right?
It was the day before Thanksgiving.
Okay,
You said.
which was 28th,
Third. 23rd.
23rd was Thanksgiving?
Yes.
Okay. So you were evicted after that and kind of living in the car?
Yep.
And the 23rd of November is less than a month after Halloween, right?
Right.
And so you were saying that Kevin O'Leary, who's also Kevin LaBelle, you now know, took the shotgun and the rifle sometime around Halloween. And if we factor 2 months after Halloween, when that transaction happened, that would be in December, right?
Right.
And 2 months after you're saying Kevin O'Leary got the rifle and the shotgun, you were living in your car
Right.
with Adam.
Right.
I hope she has a really good point with this, because I'm just getting confused. I can follow along with the holes in the other witnesses' explanation, but what does this have to do with anything?
Another thing that you told the police was your
That she was
belief
living
that
in the car
Chris
2 months
had
after it should.
a locked place for the gun, right?
Right.
Because you sort of knew that Chris had guns because he liked to go hunting.
Right.
And it was your understanding from the conversations that you were overhearing, at least at Chris, that the guns were in a locked place, right?
Right.
You didn't know where, right?
No.
And they were clearly not in an obvious place when you walk in.
Right.
And
Or under his
Adam, I think I keep sipping here. Please feel free to have water as well. So, where was I? Sorry. Adam would sometimes, after you came home from work at 2, you all would be there with the kids for a bit, and then in the evening, Adam, because he had a car, would leave because he might be able to drive people around, right?
Right.
And sometimes Kim would call to have Adam come over because he could drive, and if she couldn't leave her child, like you wouldn't like going out with your children
Right.
at night also, that she might have Adam go to pick stuff up for her, right?
Right.
And that had happened several times, right?
Yeah, a couple times.
And it is something people kind of gave him money for giving him a ride around and stuff like that.
Yep.
Or if they were going riding around to pick up drugs, they might split some of the drugs with Adam to make it worth his while.
Yep.
Beth Cooper.
And
Does it have
So-
to take so long?
if
It's been an hour now.
Adam went to Kim's, as you say that he saw the door unlocked, and you say that he told you that he
Objection, Your Honor, asked and answered.
overruled. Go ahead. Gathering my thoughts again, sorry. And he told, so do you want me to start over?
Yes, please.
Oh
Okay.
my God.
So one of the things that you tell police is that Adam told you after you confronted him about the guns, he admitted to you. Not only that, he went over, saw the door open, saw Kim was asleep, and then you say when you confronted him, he said that he searched around and found the guns and put them in his car, and then woke Kim up.
Yes.
Did you ask him why he woke her up?
No.
Okay. And the first thing that she says when she wakes up, according to this story that you say Adam gave you, where are my guns? She was freaking out about the missing guns, right?
Yeah, it took her a little bit to see that they were gone, but yeah, she was freaking out that same night.
Why do you say that?
What? I don't understand. What do you mean?
Why do you say it took her a little bit to see that the guns were gone?
Because she woke up and she obviously was looking around to see if anything was missing
Okay.
because her door was open and she
Okay.
fell asleep.
So Adam wakes her up. Now you're saying Adam tells her that her door had been open? Because she was expecting Adam, right?
Yeah, but it was wide open. It wasn't just unlocked. It was wide open, he said.
Do you know if she saw that?
No,
You're just sort of filling in stuff that seems to make sense, right?
no,
Adam didn't tell you she looked around the house and for things missing, right?
right.
Okay. Adam didn't tell you that he told her the door was open, right?
Yes, he did.
He told you that he told Kim that her
Door was
open.
wide open, yes.
Okay.
He woke her up and said the door was wide open and she was sleeping. She was passed out.
Okay. By the way, you said that you are, your drug of choice was heroin and
Crack.
what was the other?
Crack.
Crack. And heroin kind of lays you low, right?
Right,
You sort of don't want to really do anything, but you're enjoying the experience of not doing anything, right?
I guess, or you're just sick, so it makes you not sick anymore.
Okay. So when you're feeling dope sick, a little bit of heroin can make you feel better.
Right,
And crack is kind of the opposite effect, right?
right,
And heroin can act, I mean, you can get dope sick with crack if you don't have it and you're coming down from it, right?
if you use a lot of it.
Yeah, and it can leave you pretty wired, right?
Yes,
And that can be a pretty difficult experience too, right?
it depends.
Well,
But yeah,
Okay, it can be a difficult experience, right?
right,
And a little bit of heroin can just sort of take that edge off too, right?
right.
Why are we talking about how you feel when you're doing drugs? I'm so baffled. She started out so
Now,
strong,
you talked about your friend
and now
Tabitha
she's getting into this
Scott.
rambling again. Now we're going to talk about
You told
how do you
Tabitha,
feel.
well, after June 3rd, talking to the police, and you're back out on the streets,
Hmm.
and you see Tabitha Scott, right?
Right,
And you tell her that Ish and Manny brought the guns over to the house.
right,
And that was after June 3rd, right?
right.
Now,
You're doing a great job at poking holes, and then you're doing a great job of boring us to death. Why haven't you take your notepad, write down what you want to ask, and then ask it instead of this? Why are you going to the evidence now to find some text messages? Why haven't you gotten everything you need to hammer this witness as an untrustworthy witness?
states,
Why do you need to do that now? Why can't you just in 30 minutes do this? Rap, bap, bap. Did you say that? He say that? Oh, so it's not consistent with what Tim said. Did you do this? Did you do that? Oh, so it's not consistent with what this guy said. Now she's not even sure what the. I can't say. Well, I'm after 2 hours. So I could say she's not sure what the hell she's doing. Now she has wasted 2 minutes walking around in the room trying to find the evidence she needs to ask a question that she should already have had prepared. It's annoying me to high heaven that she could have done this in 30 minutes. Again, did he tell you this? Yes, yes, yes. Did you remember this? Yes, yes, yes. Did the police offer you a deal? Yes, yes, yes. Why did you lie before? Well, because this and this. Why should we believe you now, especially after you've gotten a deal to get time off in prison? Do you know with 100% certainty who got the guns? Did you see both the guns get stolen? Yes. Okay, that's funny because another witness claims that he have seen this and this. Oh, I don't remember. Then she's out on deep water. She can't keep her story straight, because I believe she may have had some help to remember her story, but I can't prove it, I can't say it. But you could do this in 30 minutes, get her off the stand, and then everybody could remember your testimony. Now we have wasted 5 minutes with nothing. Again, it's dead air. I have to say something, because or else I'm gonna lay down on the floor and go to sleep, because this is so boring. The bailiff in the background, he's
I'm
falling
going to show
asleep too.
you 3 exhibits.
How about the jury?
I don't know if
Doesn't
you
want
have
to
seen
spend
these
time
before,
there.
but they're full exhibits. In this case, one is states 13, the other is states 14, and the other is states 17.
I'm sorry, I'm just getting angry. I can't
I don't
believe
know.
we are
Have you seen
wasting
these
so
before?
much time. And now they
I
have
haven't
wrapped
seen
us.
these.
Okay.
It's
I'm just going to
lunchtime.
ask you real quick, if you could read out loud what the date and time is.
You're making me old, Eileen.
Do you recognize that to be a phone screen, by the way? Screenshot?
Yes.
Okay. Date and time at the bottom of that phone screenshot?
October 3rd, 2019 at 10:52 a.m.
10:52, okay. I'm going to show you states 14. And can you read the date and time in the middle of that screenshot?
October 3rd, 2019, 11:14
I
a.m.
really don't get why they
And
can't
then I'm going to
practice
show you
doing it short and sweet, because it's so much
Uh,
more impactful, especially
states
because we're
exhibit
watching trial after
17.
trial. A good lawyer
And
tells a story and tells it consistently. They know
can you
what they're
read
going
the
to
time in the
ask,
middle
and they
of
know
that
the answers,
screenshot, date and
so they
time?
can impeach them with the truth.
October 4th or October 3rd?
She seems
October
like
3rd,
a
2019,
manure truck. She's
3:44
spraying shit
Okay.
all over
PM.
and hoping some
And
of it will
what
stick.
is the text message right before that date and time?
Yo, you missed out.
Yo, you missed out. I'm working on my English and my street English. I know I should say bro and dog a lot. That's cool. What did we get from this? I hope you have some really good questions for wasting so much time
So
with 2 screenshots and make her say, yo, you missed out.
the perjury
Nope,
charges that you're
not going to ask about what we
spending
just said.
time for right now, those are not related to the gun case, right?
Right.
And you described the sentence that you got on direct, and it was, one of them was a 3.5 to 7 suspended, and it's suspended for 10 years.
Right.
And, sorry, the other was 3.5 to 7 with the ability to suspend 1.5 years, right?
Right.
Which would mean that you spend 2 years behind the walls,
Right.
and you also got credit for the
Pre-trial.
Pre-trial, right?
Yes.
So with the time that you already spent in jail, you would be doing a total amount of 2 years incarcerated behind the walls.
Right.
And if you did, that's assuming that you did what you were supposed to do to get the 1.5 years off, right?
Right.
And then you're on parole, right?
Right.
So in sentencing, there's a bottom number and a top number. And the bottom is generally how much time you're behind the walls.
Right.
2 years.
And then you are, if all goes well, released on parole.
Right.
And that if you have problems while you're on parole, you can go back and be incarcerated up to a grand total of 7 years.
14 years.
Right.
So you'll never do more than
Because
7
she
years,
could
but you can
make
get
the
out from
first one
behind the walls
go
in
into
2 years.
effect also.
Right.
And on the suspended time, that is, I think I heard you say suspended for 10 years.
Yes.
So you don't do anything, any incarcerated time on that sentence, right?
Right.
So when the state asked you, was that the maximum sentence that you could get on these charges? I mean, the maximum sentences were 3.5 to 7 on each,
Right.
right?
Yeah,
The
so it's 7
maximum
to 14
sentence
years.
was 3.5 to 7 with 3.5 incarcerated, plus another 3.5 to 7 incarcerated, right?
Right.
What does it
For
matter?
a grand total of
7 to
potential
14 years.
incarcerated time of 7 years,
No,
right?
7
Right.
to 14
And
years.
so you expect or are working towards and hoping for no more than a total of 2 years behind the walls.
Right.
Where are we going? It's like driving with a
And-
blind person. You don't know where we're ending.
When you talked to the police on June 3rd, you had that proffer agreement, right?
Right.
And that proffer agreement was your agreement to tell the truth also, right?
Right.
And that if you would hope that this would be the outcome by telling the police what you told them on June 3rd, that you would work things out for less than the maximum sentences.
Right.
And you testified on direct for the state, and then I brought up some questions about what you said in June 3rd, right?
Right.
There were some differences, right?
Right.
And they can be accounted for maybe by memory, right?
Right.
And the fact that you were in a fog of drugs back in October of 2019.
Correct. There was a lot going on.
Yeah, there was quite the fog of drugs back then for you, right?
Yes. But there was a lot going on, not just drugs.
Okay. In October of 2019, there was a lot going on.
Yes.
And you were into drugs.
You have to be very careful now, Elaine, because you could open the door to
Sustained.
a lot of things you don't want in this trial.
Okay, ask the next question.
Okay. And one thing I didn't talk about was the cameras. You said that Kim told you that there were cameras
These cameras are
that
not
showed
important.
who was there that night,
Right.
right? And the police were going to get them, right?
Right.
So it wasn't some elaborate thing about there were cameras. She just said the police were going to get them, right?
Right. She said there was cameras. Her neighbors had cameras.
Pardon?
She said that her neighbors had cameras and she was going to ask them for them so that the police can get the footage of the videos.
Okay. And your reaction to that was, good, you want to find out who took your guns, right?
Right.
Okay. I may have a moment, Your Honor, I may be done.
Oh my God, she's nearly done. Again, a cross-examination that started out great, and then Elaine took the wheel and just said, nope, I'm not going to hold this wheel. Jesus, take the wheel. I'm closing my eyes and stepping my foot on the accelerator. Why did you need to know that Kim talked about the camera? You had a guy yesterday who said everybody knew there was no camera. You had Kim saying there was no camera. It was just to try and make somebody nervous. I don't get. And I thought she was a bad witness before the cross-exam. So,
Kayla, you were asked about some differences between your statement back in June 3rd and your testimony today. And you were asked what those differences could be attributed to. Do you remember that from Attorney Smith?
Yes.
Do you think my reading comprehension could be one of the reasons for a difference like that?
No.
Maybe?
Well, maybe, yeah.
Okay.
Sustained.
So you were asked
Right, actually.
Sustained. You're to ignore the last question and answer.
So you were asked specifically on cross-examination by Attorney Smith if you testify, or if your statement from June 3rd was that both guns left the house that day. Do you remember her asking you that?
Yes.
And she told you that you said yes, or I think so. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Okay, and so is that what you remember saying?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna show you, Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes?
For what
She got nice
purpose?
show teeth too. I thought Craig would eat that, but maybe they're shooting it, not smoking it.
Yes, you may.
So Kayla, I'm gonna ask that you read, starting here, with MR.
Yeah.
And you go through to right here.
Okay. I said, okay. Oh, I was asked, okay, so both guns left the house that day. And I said, I think so. And the other person said that. And I said, I'm not like 100% sure, but I remember, yeah, because it was wrapped in a sheet. And they said a sheet. And I said, yeah, a sheet and a blanket. And they said, okay, and when do you think this time frame was? Like how far, how long after? And I said, it happened in the summertime, no, it was in the fall because it was October.
Perfect. So you said you're not 100% sure if both guns left the house that day.
Right.
Does that refresh your memory of that event?
Yes.
Are you sure that both guns left the house that day?
No.
No. And actually, in your statement, you go on to discuss whether both guns left the house that day. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And just like you said here, you described 2 incidents.
Right.
And with investigators, you talked about an incident with Kevin O'Leary, the person that you knew as Kevin O'Leary.
Right.
Right. And the investigators asked you, do you remember the investigators asking you who else the defendant offered the guns to?
Yes.
And you told them Manny, Ish, Mark.
Sustained.
Who did you tell them the defendant offered the guns to?
Ish, Manny, Mark, and Tone. And I don't remember the rest.
And do you remember telling officers that the defendant,
Sustained.
and investigators asked you, so both guns couldn't have left the home that day if he was still offering it to people?
Sustained.
Ask her about, do you remember if you told it? And when she said no.
Were you able to clarify whether both guns left the
They-
house that day during your June
refresh your
3rd
memory if
interview?
you read it
No.
again.
And why is that?
Because I don't remember if they both left or if one left or that whole situation. Because I also got told about Kevin O'Leary being Kevin LaBelle, but I remember the 2 white guys that came in. Neither one of them was Kevin O'Leary or Kevin LaBelle.
Okay. And Attorney Smith asked you about the discovery that you received before going to your June 3rd meeting.
Yes.
And I think did you say your lawyer had highlighted a few things?
Yes.
Did he highlight the names of people?
Yes.
Okay. So you knew Kevin as Kevin O'Leary,
Yes.
and one of the things he highlighted for you was the name of Kevin.
Sustained. Counsel approach.
I know he wants to get her some credibility back, but he's leading very, very much. He has to do it in some other way because he's just testifying for her now and making her say yes afterwards. And that's a bit too obvious. But hopefully he can land it because I think he's trying to rehabilitate her.
Did you know Kevin's last name at the time before your proffer?
No.
Did you know Manny's last name or his first name at the time?
I don't remember his name.
Did you know Ish's full name at the time?
No.
Did you know Mike's full name at the time?
No.
Are those things that your attorney highlighted for you?
Yes.
You testified on cross-examination that you didn't touch those guns.
Right.
And I think you said that on direct as well.
Yes,
You also said that you didn't possess those guns, both on direct and on cross.
correct.
And I think Attorney Smith also asked you if you retained the guns on cross-examination. And what did you say to that?
No,
Who did?
Adam,
Who possessed those guns?
Adam,
Who retained those guns?
Adam,
Who stole those guns?
Adam.
And he told you that he stole those guns.
Yes,
Stop.
Did he tell you that he stole those guns?
yes,
And end it there. So now Elaine is going to go back and
So on your direct examination, you talked about the first statement that the defendant told you. And I want to clarify between the first statement and his admission to you of what he'd done. In his first statement, did he tell you that Kim Frayne was sleeping when he went to her home?
Overruled. Go ahead.
Sorry, let me ask that again. In his first statement, did he tell you that Kim Frayne was sleeping when he went into her home?
yes,
In his first statement, did he tell you that those guns were stolen?
Overruled.
Sorry, let me ask that again. In his first statement, did he tell you that the guns were stolen when he went into her home?
I don't remember if he said that or not.
Missing.
Yes,
In his second statement, he told you that he stole. Did he tell you that he stole the guns?
yes,
In his second statement, did he tell you that she was sleeping when he stole the guns?
yes,
stop. You got it back online on the track. Don't muddle the water again. Don't do it, Elaine. Make Elaine get back up there and talk for hours. She's in jail for perjury because she lied about probably the murder of the Adam's daughter Harmony, her stepdaughter. That's her perjury charges. She lied before a grand jury, and then they smacked on some weapons charges, and yeah, it's a bit fishy. It seems a bit like the state cut her a deal. But it's the first time I heard about anyone convicted of perjury who's not a politician or something. So she must have lied pretty obviously. But her defense is that she perjured herself because she was afraid of Adam. He was supposedly beating her, and in the pre-trial hearing, they took some pictures out where she had two black eyes after getting smacked around by him. There was some talk about it maybe being put in today if the defense would go into why she perjured herself. And Elaine, she's not called Elaine, but she's named Elaine after the Johnny Depp attorney who also rambled on for hours. She has been keeping away from why she lied, but she perjured herself in I believe it primarily the Harmony case with the missing daughter, the case that goes on in August.
Anything further, Attorney Smith?
You were talking with me before the redirect. We talked about a transaction that you said was
Mostly can,
two white
get,
guys,
7 to
and
14
one
years
was
if
the
he lies
driver.
today. So you must believe
Yes.
her. Everybody.
and the other was doing the transaction, right?
right,
And that was a transaction that you say occurred in the attic, right?
Yes.
2 white guys, one a driver and one doing the transaction, right?
Right.
And you actually called it a transaction, right?
Right.
And then when you were talking about Kevin O'Leary to the police,
Come on, Elaine. You have had all this time to write down the questions you want to ask. Why can't you ask the questions? We fall asleep between each question. It's so bad that she hasn't got anything in her control. She just starts talking, loses her train of thought, and just it doesn't work.
you were talking about Kevin coming over and wanting to buy the gun.
Yes.
And when they asked if he ever bought it, you said the other guys came down and did the transaction. They
Thank you so much, Dave. I'm frequently in his chat, and when I saw that no one was covering this trial, I thought, well, I give it a shot. And a lot of people have been joining from David's chat, and it's a nice crew over there. So if you're watching this and not a member of MLS Law Show's chat, you better get over there. He's always making a very, very good stream, and his chat is among the best on the internet because all the greatest people hang out in his chat.
were wrapped in sheets. I'm pretty sure they left with them that day. I thought they did anyway, right?
Right.
And that's a different time than the prosecutor was pointing out about the white guys, one a driver and one doing the transaction, leaving with both guns that day, right?
That's the same incident.
Right.
Yes.
That was the second time that you told the police that they left with the guns that day, right?
Right.
And we talked about a little bit of the drug activities. Days don't really set out to you, right?
Right.
Doesn't stand out to you, not set out to you.
And one of the things that the prosecutor asked about was Adam's, I think he called it first and second statement.
Yes.
And the door wide open, the dog didn't bark, and woke up and the guns were missing. The door wide open and the dogs didn't bark. You also knew that from Kim Frain's statement in discovery, right?
No.
That was something that was in the discovery in this case, right?
I don't know. I didn't get to see that.
Okay. And
Why ask a question you don't want the answer
the
to?
event with Kevin O'Leary, I think that you said it was before Halloween, around that time, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I've seen you on his chat too then. Facebook, Dave. You have quite the reputation. Good or bad, I'll let it up to people to know.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Anything further?
Your Honor, I've asked, excuse me, I've asked that this witness be excused.
Any objection?
If
Counsel, why don't you approach for 1 minute?
Cancel lunch? I hope not. I'm getting hungry. It's 6:30 here. I am gonna need my dinner soon. Do they come back? Yeah. I really don't get why this cross. What did it prove? Nothing. That's my biggest problem is they keep asking questions that they don't know the answer to, and it's so dangerous to imply that she just read the discovery and made up her story after that to accommodate the police. And now she said, no, I didn't know it from there. That lends credibility to her story that she knew it from Adam. We can never know what's true, but why did you
Ma'am,
want to
can
do
you
it?
just stay put for 1 minute? Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our lunch break now, so if you would come back at 1:25, I would expect that we would start up again at 1:30. As I have reminded you throughout this case, make sure that you do not discuss the case with each other or with anyone else. Don't talk about the case. Don't do any independent research. Don't look up any names or places. Don't look up the law. You'll get that in the court's instructions, and we'll see you in about an hour. So we should start up at 1:30. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
All right, for the jury.
That was pretty good that didn't went back on redirect, because I think he finished off strong by saying, well, it was something knew, but you can't remember really because of the drugs. And then Cross came back and she just asked stupid questions. And I really don't understand why
What
she
order do you
couldn't.
want to do that?
First of all, she didn't use all the time.
Actually, Counselor, can I
Needed
see
all
you
the time
for
she
just a
used,
minute?
but she asked so many stupid questions that didn't prove anything. That I can't understand why she didn't. I can't understand why she didn't go into the statements the other witnesses had given. First, put in the timeline implying that the police bought her, then saying, well, Kim remembered this. That doesn't add up with what you're saying. Oh, I don't know. Then this guy said that, but you don't agree with that. No, but and you could have showed a lot of doubt. But the problem is that this case, it's just she talks too much, and she focuses on stuff that's not really that important. I thought that the biggest problem with this was the witness didn't seem all that trustworthy. But then Elaine kept rambling and went down a road no one could follow, and that's her biggest problem. Oh, all the love for Dave in the chat. He's one of the hardliners on MLS Law Show's Facebook page, and you can follow that too if you're not following it already. You should be. It's the best content that's not on my channel. I have to grift my own channel too. But I will go out and make some dinner, and hopefully I'll get a stream up again for the afternoon show, and hopefully it's not as boring as this was. I was hoping for some fireworks. Sadly, no fireworks, but maybe there'll be some better witnesses in the afternoon. I didn't think the wife made a good witness. I thought the Cross again helped the prosecution. It's hard to say, but you have your opinions, I have mine, and hopefully we'll see each other again in the afternoon, my evening, and we can hear Elaine ramble some more. Nothing like a middle-aged woman trying to keep the track of her thoughts. Thank you so much for watching along with me, and I can see David is still online, so if you need something to do in the lunch break, go over and check out David's channel. Bye for now.